Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another week of Growing with My Fellow Growers. This is episode 300. I'm your host, Jack Greenstock, joined as always by an amazing panel. I'm going to pass it over first this week to Spartan Grown.
Thanks, Jack. I'm Spartan Grown. You can find me on Instagram at Spartan Grown, all one word, no spaces. Or if you don't do the social media, you can shoot me an email at spartangrown@gmail.com or russ@gmlarmy.com, and I can help you with all of your lighting or growing questions, or at least try to help you.
We do the best we can, right? But with that said, we've also got Brandon Rust joining us for the first hour tonight. So I'm going to pass it over to Brandon Rust.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Good to be back. 300th episode. If you're not already familiar with me, you can find me at rust.brandon on Instagram. And you can also check out the Bokashi Earthworks website, bokashiearthworks.net.
We are happy to have you back, and I just want to announce at the top of the show we're going to be doing some giveaways here live on the YouTube live, as well as after the show. I'm going to be giving away some stuff on X, formerly known as Twitter. So if you're one of those people who listens on Apple Podcast or Spotify or any of the other podcast platforms that we put the podcast on afterwards, you can go follow me, Jack_Greenstock. I'll have a post that you can reply to, and after a week, I'll be choosing or randomly selecting a winner from there. But we just got the American one joining us here in just a moment, so we'll have him entering here in just a bit. But we'll be giving away some books and some seeds. And I think Spartan might have mentioned he might want to jump in on the giveaways as well. I'm sure Tao will as well when we get to that point in the show. But
Yeah, I'll
I'll
definitely toss in seeds too myself from my Vortex project. So or just give maybe I'll just give somebody in their pick from either which is Project V, which is Vortex F2, or Spartan Puke, which is Vortex Cross to Donnyburger, or Orange Vortex, which is the Orange Dream Haze cross to Vortex, which is a Jelly Bean. Orange Dream Haze was a Jelly Bean cross. So,
all
yeah,
sound fire
yeah, all pretty good stuff.
and worth hanging around for. And with that said, we've also got another great seed maker in the house here with the American one. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, Jack panel, everyone in chat. I am the American one on the YouTube and the American one underscore with the underscore Keens on the IG. Most of you know me. You can find me on IG. And yeah, it's great to be here. And yeah, sure, I'll definitely give away a pack of seeds. I'll let them choose which ones they want from what I got. And yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad I made it.
Glad you made it as well, and I'm sure that many people here in the audience are going to be looking forward to those giveaways as we get going. We're going to hang a little bit just so we can get some more people rolling in and make sure people have a little bit of incentive to hang around. Last time I made you guys wait all the way to the end of the show, even though I said I was going to do it at the top of the hour. So sometimes I make you wait a little bit longer, even than anticipated. But because we have multiple, we'll be doing them throughout the show, and it is a 300th celebration. And it kind of makes me think of that movie, The 300 Spartans. And as I introduced Spartan, our first panelist this evening, it was even more fitting. But I was glad to see his name pop up as we were loading up to go live. But it kind of makes me think a little bit about our little, not little, not so little anymore, but our following that we've got here with the show and all the faithful, passionate individuals. And they're like the 300 Spartans of the growing community, so to speak, where we can all stick together and be strong and grow our dank individually and unify at times, like people coming together in partnerships in the commercial spaces or caregiver spaces, whether it's something like Spartan Grown's doing over there with Baked Pone at the Trichome Forge, or other people have done at different scales and things like that. But it's awesome to see. And I'm glad that our community continues to welcome in new Spartans, so to speak, all the time that are going to continue to keep on growing and keep that kind of legacy of, being a generous, conscientious, careful, and thoughtful grower.
Just having a consensus of people, all growers growing in all different conditions, to be able to test new theories and products and techniques, and it can be tested, not like this, but almost feels like that quick, because you can have a new technique that everybody's talking about, and then everybody tries it, and you can get that consensus back so quick. It's like a lifetime of growing you can learn from in days or in a matter of moments. So that's another way I think that the community is just super awesome is I still feel like we're on like the cutting edge of the subject. So to be able to just try new things and experiment in your own gardens, it's not only fun, but I think it's beneficial for everyone to be able because we're sharing our results.
When people are always sending me new stuff, like even some people come on the show and they showed off like those rooting cubes and things like that. So there's always new stuff out there, and sometimes the new stuff is bogus and phony or whatever, or kind of a fly-by-night type stuff, or sometimes it actually turns out to be, a great new staple product in the market. And for a long time, nobody used root riots or rabbit rooters, but they were huge for a long time. And no one used Rockwool for a long time, but for some reason, that got really huge and still is. And so there's a lot of different little things that pop up and become part of the industry. And, some stick around and some fade away. But it's been really interesting over the years being at 300 episodes, doing this over 5+ years, to not only have learned from what's happened in my garden and the several harvests in that time period, but also seeing hundreds or thousands of growers' gardens where they might have a pest issue, they might have a new product they try, they might have a new light, they might have a new fan or something. There's just always a different, the whole underlighting, side lighting situation has really taken off in past few years, I would say. So there's always a different approach, and even just different ways of attacking the same thing. Different types of modified grow mixes, subcool super soil. My barber that I taught still loves it and still grows with it, and we'll mix up like garbage cans full of it and let it kind of cook for a while, and he grows dank in it. So I'm not gonna question it. And I've had people that I taught Brandon's recipe, where it's kind of build your own situation. You buy the peat and all the amendments and mix it all together, and that works well too. And you can buy bags like Michigan Made Mix or other bagged soils that'll get you basically all the way through. So there's so many different ways to go in about it. And I think everybody ultimately works towards a system that works for them. And over these 300 episodes, it's been really cool to interact with so many of the people in the chat. We'll probably take some questions tonight because I don't necessarily have a topic other than I know that I wanted to give back to the community that's given us so much over these years and supported us just by showing up and commenting, liking, subscribing, all that good stuff, and making sure that you continue to watch. I've got a bunch of channels that I follow on YouTube that I'll admit my hobbies ebb and flow, and I get interest during certain seasons on certain things. So I'll watch some videos, but not every video. But I see some of you guys here every single week. So it's like, and it's not just that you watch every video, you're here live and commenting and engaging with us, which is amazing that you've carved out this couple hours to be able to hang with us. So it's very humbling, and I'm just happy to be a part.
Yeah, I think that's what makes us strong is it's just the community itself. I know a lot of you get a lot of flack because you what makes the news is the extremes, right? But there are these little communities like this, in probably every niche that you can come up with, whether it's whether whatever type of gardening or there's just as crazy people about gardening with peppers that are gardening about cannabis, and when you can find like-minded individuals and you can come together as a group and you share something in common. It just you get that sense of community, and it helps people in other ways besides the gardening, right? Mental health, huge, uh, or just like I said, being able to learn from each other, or being able to have somebody to lean on to ask a question and get a direct answer fairly quickly, rather than having to search through online forums or and trying to figure out who knows what or what's right. Um, it's super. It's just always. I can even remember back in the day when cannabis wasn't, as legal as it is now. And it wasn't like you would go online to look up anything because it was always the fear of that would leave a trail. So it was mentoring back then. It was like you learned from this person over here that was a grower. You learned from this person, this old head over here that was a grower. And it was kind of like a mentoring thing. And there's advantage to that in one aspect, in that you learn a certain way without any outside influence, and you can at least learn one way. But at the same time, you kind of there's disadvantages to that too. You're not open to other ideas.
The way you described it just now reminds me a little bit of the trades generally across the board, whether it's electrical or woodworking or tile or whatever. I know a lot of people in a lot of the different trades, and some of them are third generation plumbers. Their grandpa installed the same stuff that they're working on, and it hasn't broken, so they use the same equipment. And sometimes there's new stuff like they're retrofitting a lot of these pipes now with like PVC insert type things because a lot of the pipes are either rusting or maybe like old lead pipe and things like that. Like there's situations where the old is no longer good enough, and so it gets brought up to a new standard. And it's fascinating to see like what you just talked about with what reminded me of the trades is that they kind of have that um, there's a term that I'm blanking on, but where they go through the process of learning underneath somebody, but they have a apprenticeship type thing.
Yeah, you start out
And
as a journeyman usually, and then you work
right,
your
so
way up.
and you work directly underneath somebody who's got sort of the skills and experience to kind of show you, because as much as they have handyman stuff online that's part of certain trades. They could show you like how to install your own outlet at your house or change a socket or something like that. You're not an electrician, right? I've done little odd jobs here and there, but it's different than going through the whole experience of like being part of the trade. And I think a lot of the successful growers have had the benefit of either having somebody directly in person to be kind of taking them under the wing, or online like ourselves that can through podcasts and through looking at their photos and videos essentially digitally be that person and coach them through. And at this point, it's like I've got countless people that I can say that I've helped grow through their first harvest or get through issues and things like that. So it's really nice to be able to look back and see, instead of like them messaging me with issues, we're just talking about life or sending me memes and things like that. And then they're sending me harvests, like, and they might ask a question, odd question here and there, like, oh, I just had this harvest and I'm at 60 degrees and X humidity. Like, should I run my humidifier and try and bump it up, or is that going to be too low? And I'm like, I think it'll actually be fine, but it's probably just going to dry a little quicker if it's a little lower. And the humidifier can sometimes add extra situations that you aren't even anticipating, and I'd err on the side of a little too dry than a little too moist. And if your humidifier is not super dialed in, then and that was my advice on that particular situation. But it's cool to see people consistently harvesting, and that's not all of us, right? It's on them, because just like going to the trade example, like sure you can learn a little bit here and there from a YouTube video, but until you actually get kind of hands-on with it and start popping those seeds and taking those clones and growing those plants through veg and making the mistakes that we all made at one point or another, overwatering, underwatering, because it's like unless you've got some really expensive fancy meter, which even like some of those, I don't think necessarily give you the best like you might not even know how to install it properly because you're so new. And so even with all the technology, you could think you might be able to buy your way into like being a better gardener sometimes, or any hobby you get into, like get as much technology and equipment as possible, or the best, uh, you know. And this is no shot at Spartan or Brandon or anybody else who's got a good modern light, because my light is from like 2019. So like, uh, you don't have to have the brand newest thing to you don't be like I need to have the same light as Spartan Grown or the same light as Brandon or the same light as Tao or whatever. Plenty of lights will work. If you have to buy the budget introductory entry level one to get started, then so be it. That's a big part of our name in this podcast, the cheap home grow. I think inexpensive sometimes could be the better term, because I think quality is cheaper in the long run occasionally if you have the money to save up for an extra week or month or whatever it is to get the better one, buy once, cry once kind of thing. But those are lessons that you do learn over time, right? It's like you bought the crappy one and then it shorted out on you mid grow. And now you're like, oh man, next time I'm going to buy the one that's actually going to last me not just this grow, but for like the next year or five. And there's something to spending a little bit more and, you know, getting that thing that will take good care of you. But it's hard to necessarily know because there's so much marketing and jargon and gimmicks now out there. It's like, we've got the 100 million thousand diode XYZ
Well, that's where the
wattage.
community comes in again, right? If you're for the depending on how big of a community you are, and that's the thing is resist that urge to fall into like this a small circle within the community. Be part of the whole community if you can be, because the more people that you have, that's the more minds you can draw from, and you can ask other people's opinion on something. Hey, what's this new XYZ you used in your garden? How did it work? What's your results before you even spend a dollar, right? I love that stuff.
I totally agree. And it's like we're all hearing about the hype cycles of AI, artificial intelligence, artificial
Yeah.
generalized intelligence. Do you know what we all are? We're walking, talking, breathing intelligences. We're not even just artificial. We got the real deal. We're better than what is currently available. And sometimes the new stuff, it's like, wow, it's really impressive. Maybe I wouldn't be able to do that as quickly or whatever. But what we do, if you follow a bunch of growers or you follow a bunch of podcasts, looking at all these photos, looking at your own grow, cross-referencing all these things through that pattern recognition, you're using your intelligence. You've got it in there, even if you don't think you're the smartest person in the whole world. You can piece it together, and you can. Everybody's intelligence is differently. Einstein, I think, once said, if you measure a fish's ability to climb a tree, you're going to think that it's unintelligent, right? But it's all about just getting people in the right situation, and I think we can all sort of learn through an apprentice or a helper or whatever. But some people are obviously going to be a little bit more natural takers to it than others. But that said, I think there's probably anybody who wants to do something like growing cannabis can. And there's more than one approach. So don't get caught into like the dogma of thinking, oh, because Jack likes organic, I have to grow organic. Because maybe organic doesn't work for you. Maybe hydro works for you. Maybe deep water culture or whatever, cocoa or a mix, syngenic. That's what I was doing when I first got back started into this. So there's more than one way to go about getting to the end and having a lot of success with it. So I'm certainly looking forward to continuing to meet a lot of the newer growers that filter through as we continue to do the show. They pop up here and there, and we'll answer the questions and help them out. And also to hang with the veterans who are probably growing as good or better than us at this point and making their own seeds. And somebody's actually sending me a Bruce Banner cross to Velvet Punch seeds. So shout out to them. My homies out in I don't even want to say what state, but shout out to them because I think it's cool to do work with seeds that you get. Like I think that spreads out the gene pool more and there's more unique stuff out there. Like I wouldn't have done that work. I didn't have Bruce Banner to work with. You're not stepping on my toes at all. Like have fun, make crosses and see what you like. If you like my strain enough to cross it to something else, then that's I think honestly very flattering and it's cool if I can get some of those seeds to grow myself at some point because it's always, something different. The people might think that just one single cross is how much can actually change, but you'd be very surprised. It can bring out whole new flavor profiles and growth morphologies and things like that that a lot of the newer growers tend to underestimate the importance of genetics and how different one can be from another. I think now it would be a good time maybe to start considering a giveaway. And since I offered up myself, I'll be doing a USA only. Sorry, y'all,
Wait a
because
minute, you're giving yourself away, Jack. What are you doing, man? You
I'm
offered
giving
up
myself
yourself.
away,
Damn.
selling myself, selling my soul to the community. But I'm going to be giving away one pack of seeds and one book of 50 strains of green to a U.S. listener because 78 to like 83%, depending on the platform, is here in the U.S. And for shipping reasons, it just makes things legal and a lot more simple. And so to a listener out there in the US of A, we're going to go just like we did last week here live for this one. And I'm going to think of a number looking at how many people we currently have live. Brandon's got his garden going on. So, Brandon, thank you for the nice ambiance in the background. I should probably show that off a little bit. Might spotlight it, might not. Who knows? Let's see. We've got 60 currently watching. So, we're going to go 120 is our high number and zero, or well, 1 to 120, no zeros. And I'm going to type start in the chat. And if somebody guesses your number, you can repeat. But if you do more than one guess, then you will be disqualified. So only one guess and monitor on the live chat to make sure that you're not using the same number as somebody above you. But when you see start from Cheap Home Grow, you can start your guess from 1 to 120. And this is for US listeners only. So I just typed start. There's going to be a little bit of a delay from when it actually sends versus when you all get to see it and hear it. But yeah, we've already got numbers going. So everything past the start. So anything grows, 87 is the first one. We've got Dave Mac, 77. Local Grow, 72. And we're going to go for about 3 minutes.
You gonna
I've
let us
got,
know what the number is in private chat? We could help you look, or what do you?
yeah, I'll type it into the private chat right now. 1 to 120. Make your guesses, folks. I'm going to do a random number generator.
I just transplanted today, so I just got these clones in here. I still gotta put clones in this bed.
It's gonna get too packed out then, no?
Nah, I only
No.
veg for a couple of days.
Okay.
Yep.
Obviously, they're all females, right? Yeah.
I already selected them. They're clones from different seedlings. So I've got I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
16.
7, 8, 9, 10. I think there's 12 different phenotypes.
I already see
Uh,
somebody who hit the winning number. Sorry to cut you off, Brandon. But I want to make sure that nobody guessed it before them. So I'm going to scroll back through my live. But continue. Go ahead.
Hem Dog times Black Lime Reserve. Something new that I made last year that I'm just getting to right now. I'm just running that Fos too. What the cool thing about this is the diodes are encapsulated inside of a directional lens. Should probably wipe these down. I haven't done that in a minute.
So I do want to give a shout out to Seed Person One who hit the nail on the head. The number was three, and I looked through my live chat, and you were the very first one to answer three. I think you might already have a copy of the book and seeds, but I'd be more than happy to send you some more. Maybe you could gift it to a friend, or if you want to, you can let me know somebody in the community. If you don't already have those things, then I'd be more than happy to hook you up because I've got some of your seeds as well. So it's a happy coincidence there. Obviously, like I said, just maybe I should have done my screen share or whatever on the random number. When I saw it was as low as three, it like kind of surprised me because whenever I'm like 1 to 1, 30, I guess it could have technically have been one, but I always think higher, I guess. So shout out to Seed Person
I
One.
don't think a better person could have won.
I
Yeah,
agree.
congratulations, Seed Person.
Big
He's
shout out.
awesome.
Huge long-term listener. He's one of the blue wrenches there in the guesses. So people are gonna be like rigged. This is not rigged, folks. I double checked just to make sure that nobody else guessed it before him. And shout out to Seed Person One. Great dude. He's hooked up so countless people with the Goth Girl. Plants looking amazing. I need to grow some of those out myself. So many good seeds from so many good people. Brandon, Tao, Spartan, and others. Plus stuff I want to make more of, like the Donnie Burger. Since I guess they're not making more of those. Somebody on one of the podcasts I just did, Nick Wolf, was telling me that I should make F2s because they're not making F2s or any more Donny Burger seats. And I was like, yeah, maybe I will, just for like myself and friends. Not going to sell them or anything, just because I love Donny Burger and I've hyped it up so much. That way I could gift some maybe when I sell Velvet Punch and things like that, or do giveaways and stuff like this. But shout out to you, Seed Person One. I'm going to hopefully update my chat and see if you've commented or anything since then. We've got, oh, here, there's the reactions. Seed Person One giving hearts and pray emojis. Big ups to you, Seed Person One. Like I said, long time listener and great person in the community. So he said Jack told me what number to pick. LOL. Just kidding, just kidding. So he was absolutely joking about that. So shout out to Seed Person's got a good sense of humor. We appreciate humor in this community. It's not illegal. You're allowed to make jokes. It's good to laugh now and again. I think that's a great thing. One of the best parts I think of the community is I think a lot of people have great sense of humor. Some of the best memes. Seed Person One is actually I follow him closely on his story because he's got lots of memes and usually generally trends towards like positive, cool, unique, interesting stuff. So if you don't already follow Seed Person One, big shout out to Seed Person One on Instagram and he's probably on the other social medias as well. So big ups, big ups. Can't say enough good things. So, episode 300, starting it off strong. We just passed 420 here on the West Coast. I hope everybody's smoking on something strong. Spartan, are you toking with us tonight? What are you smoking on?
Yeah, I started off. I've already had a couple bowls, or at least one bowl of Spartan Puke. I've had a recent harvest of that, so I was anxious to get started smoking it. And but then I've switched to since that I've switched to dabs, and it's honestly not my favorite, but we ran a bunch of back crosses of Sour D, some Sour D back cross threes, some back cross twos from Top Dog Genetics, and I didn't feel like they translated well into the dabs. To be fair though, we did runs that were where we combined multiple phenols together. So none of these. We have a select and just the bulk, and even the select were like our two top selects. So it was still combining two phenos, and it just didn't. I don't feel work on the flavor department. It's almost caustic to the throat, man, but it's still a good effect, a good high to it, but yeah, I'm not happy with the flavor so much. When you think sour D, that's not what you're expecting so much. But I guess once you start concentrating these things, it can change a little bit for you.
Well, and some of these terpenes are really aggressive. So
Yeah,
I've
in my
always liked
opinion.
sour as flower, and I don't know how even large of a concentrate market there was when it was really big and hot in the earlier days. So it was like maybe some people doing what they were calling honey oil, but butane hash oil was definitely around back then, and hash was certainly around for much longer. But it's interesting. When I got it, it was always flour. I never had like sour D hash, other than like in the last few years, and I'm always questioning like where it's coming from and the source of what that clone. Maybe they popped some seeds that were sour diesel, or what sour is it? I'd say in Northern California and New York areas are some of the best places that you're most likely to get some real sour. But if you pop enough seeds, you can find representations that are close to what you knew and loved. Spartan's showing off some concentrate over there. I think it's the sour that he was referring to earlier.
Yeah, it doesn't, I don't have the right lighting to show it off well, but it is like really light hash.
It looks nice and gold,
Good. But
light and
yeah,
creamy
it's just for me,
almost.
it's almost like I don't know, like it leaves a little tickle in the back of my throat, and I'm not a fan of that. But it's still a good effect. So I've been just like I always do though. I always like to mix some bong rips with dabs because I really truly believe that if you just smoke dabs, that you miss out on something because when you switch back to just if you haven't been smoking flower for a while and you go to smoke some flower, it just hits different. And
I'm excited to see how because I've grown sour diesel. I'm not a huge fan of it. It takes a really long time and
yeah.
it's really finicky and it was popular, but there was other varieties that I like better, like the sour OG Kush. And I think the best way to get sours is with that chem. That chem brings in a lot of sour to what it touches. I'm really excited about this sour diesel Black Lemon Reserve cross I
A
just
lot
made.
of people think sour comes from chem.
I'm sure it does. I mean, I see a huge resemblance.
Like three of the
I,
four stories that are out there is directly related, or just straight up like S1s or similar crosses.
I'm really excited. I love sours and chems, and that's like what the Lamarilla really represents. It's very very pungent and acrid, and it just got those super loud profiles.
I was gonna say like 300. I was reflecting back and thinking about doing like highlights of like our old shows and maybe even bringing up like the first clips of like Spartan's first episode or my first episode or like Brandon's first episode and things like that and digging them way up because they're on the one podcast player that you can find them. So it's funny to look back and listen to some of those like 5+ year old episodes and see how far we've come, both our audio qualities and our opinions on growing and things like that, our technologies that we have available to us, and it's fun to look back. And but one of them I was thinking about, as Brandon just said, Limarilla was the Josie Wales episode. I re-uploaded it because it's the only interview I could find online anywhere of him talking to anybody. And Brandon's Limarilla has the GG4, which Josie Wales is the original creator of, and like got to hear from the horse's mouth like what the crosses were, how he acquired them, who he got them from, and like to see that it's still represented in Brandon's Limarilla, and still so many people hold the GG4 cut and hold it pretty fondly, and grow it well, and it's definitely got some chems in there, and it's a really interesting cross, and I'm glad that it's still part of the community, and I think it's funny because. I think there was a breeder. I think he might still be around. Obsolete genetics. And like if you just Google the term obsolete, like it just means like something that's like no longer used. And obviously, like if you're aware of the terminology or whatever, it's just like I hadn't thought of or used that word and like heard it used in another context about some other technology or industry and things like that. But it made me think like a lot of the stuff that is considered obsolete, right? That's like no longer used is some of the best shit. Like the sour diesels, the chems, and things like that. They're technically still used, but in like much, much, much smaller amounts. There's way higher amounts of the wedding cake and all the other commercial stuff that's being pushed around in the industry, Cushmans and Gushers and this and that. You see very few people growing like pure chems. And even like Brandon mentioned, the sour OG, that's one of my favorites. And like one of the guys who owned the old hydro store by where I live here, that shut down, he grew some sour OG and it was always fire. And like one of his buddies, he gave the cut to and he grew it and it was even super fire. But that's one you just don't see like sour OG Kush in the market super often, at least not where I'm at. I don't know about where you guys are at, but a lot of these like quote obsolete strains, like they were the highlights of certain eras. And many, thankfully, genetic preservationists are out there who've either made it into good seed form or hold the cut itself and have like scrubbed the genetic material through tissue culture and other means, and or just kept it strong. And like some people grow it outside over the summer to reinvigorate it. So that's one of the kind of old secret techniques that I've heard many breeders discuss. Like if your cut starts getting a little bit finicky or not growing the best, like throw it outside over the summer for like a whole year, let it get under the sun and let it acclimate first, but take at least one cut and put it out there and see how it performs because that can, I think, make some stuff that wasn't doing so well indoor or even in a greenhouse, maybe shake some of that stuff off.
I think a big thing too is take your a lot of times I'll see people have the opinion of taking like I don't know, when you're cleaning up weak branches off the bottom or something, they'll take and use those for clones, which is fine, whatever. But I would prefer like a clone that you're trying to use to be your mother plant for the next genetic line. Take a good healthy clone, the healthiest part on that plant. Take that piece and make that your clone. I'm not a big fan of taking the weakest small little stuff.
It's a good point. I think a lot of people are opportunistic as they should be. It's like a free clone, especially if you're like pruning off some of the stuff before you flip it to flower or whatever. And some of that can be healthy, especially on like a brand new seed run, right? If it's healthy, vigorous, and brand new. But if you're working with like the original chem, like a 1991 a strain, or OG Kush from like Josh G's crew, like 1990s, or any of these older strains that are from the 90s or even early 2000s, like we're talking like that's 15, 20 plus years ago. Like, so some of this material, it's really it's been around for a long time and it has had a lot of opportunities to pick up a lot of stuff. So the older stuff, it's even better. Like when they do tissue culture to clean up, like I was talking about earlier, they do what's called like meristem tissue culture. They're taking it from the top, the tippity toppest, newest, healthiest, cleanest tissue that they can, and then they scrub that. And then even from that, when they grow that out, they're taking the brand newest growth from that. And over generation after generation, you can scrub pathogens or even pesticides and things like that, I believe. So it's an interesting process, and it's certainly newer to me. I tried to learn it 1 year. It was my New Year's resolution to learn tissue culture, and unfortunately, I failed. I read a book on it, and I didn't actually buy the materials and set up because I have so many seeds that I'm just like, man, before I start worrying about tissue culture, I just got to start popping more of these seeds, and they're only getting older. So for me to worry so much about some stuff that I grew and enjoyed, I almost think it makes it more special to have those seasons and just be more motivated to document and take good notes and take good photos and enjoy it for while I have it, unless it's something that really helps a specific ailment for myself or my wife or some family friend, then I don't necessarily see as much of a need to desperately hold on to cuts as I once did, because I think there's a lot of ways, just like there's a lot of ways to grow, there's a lot of way to treat your ailments with medical cannabis. You can, get those terpenes or those cannabinoids from a variety of different strains. It doesn't have to be um, just one, you know. Like there's a lot of strains that are high in terpinolene. If you like uppity stuff, you could get Jack Herer or Trainwreck or Durban. There's other things and like, oh, man, I should pull this up because I can't pronounce the actual word, but somebody asked me about the Durban and the anise, and I sent them an article on X actually, so I could go find that while we're chit-chatting. And it was about the non-terpene aromas that create the anise aroma that's in, so that the kind of black licorice smell for anybody who's not familiar in Durban poison and some other strains.
And then we have another question in chat that person one brought in. Maybe Brandon can or Tal maybe can even help with this. Both you guys have read enough to maybe seen this, but he says, I've had a question. Do plants that have been pollinated still throw nanners? I've never seen a pollinated plant do it, but I don't know if that turns, it says, or does that pollination turn off the trait? I don't know if it goes that far as making it like incapable of accepting pollen past that. I think that's still capable of accepting pollen, but does it stop it from being able to try to throw its own pollen after it's been pollinated and it's
That's a
accepted?
great question. I never pollinated a herm or suspected herm, so I really don't know. It is a good question. Now you figure if the plant gets seeded, if it has like some sort of brain, it would say I don't need to make pollen because I'm already. But I don't know. That's a great question.
Right, like if that process of making seed has already started, is that
Right,
something that then it doesn't have to, it turns something
turns
else off
off.
genetically?
Right. That's a great question.
That is a great question. It's cool to think about that. You use it as a technique to try to, like, if you know you're gonna have, like, if you're an outdoor grower, for example, and it's getting close to harvest, if you could pollinate one branch and protect the rest of the plant from accepting pollen, it probably doesn't work like that because the rest of those flowers could still accept it. But
My thoughts would be if you have a plant that's susceptible to hermaphrodation and it's herming when you pollinate it, it's probably going to continue to produce its own pollen, and some of those may potentially create S1s, and then you'll have seeds from another variety.
But what he's saying is that what if it's pollinated first, then would that plant no longer Hermy? Would it something genetically be turned off and be like, all right, we don't need to even
Oh,
produce male parts because we're already pollinated?
I've
oh
seen,
yeah. No,
I
I
don't
don't
know,
know.
I think I've seen pollinated plants that are pushed late for seeds that will start to throw nanners. So I don't think it necessarily completely shuts that trait off. So if you stress a pollinated plant enough, it will try to self-pollinate even though it's already pollinated, or to spread its pollen to other plants that are around that aren't already pollinated by its genetic material.
It's a good question.
It is interesting. And anethole, or ANETHOLE, is a phenolic compound that is responsible for the black licorice smell in cannabis. So it's a, yeah, interesting one that a lot of people, like I said, we got to abandon just calling it the terp profile, because it's a cannabinoid profile and an aromatic profile and flavor and all that stuff, because terpenes are just a slice of it, really. There's esters, aldehydes, ketones, um, flavonoids, etc. So there's a whole lot to the what makes cannabis so great, and that's why I always go back to flower and bong rips, etc. Tao, what are you smoking on tonight if you're able to indulge?
I've been actually sampling some of this auto plants that I grew out from seed, gifted from Seed Person One, as a matter of fact. Um,
Karma, folks. Karma's real, but in the, strangest of
yeah,
ways.
that's what I was going to say earlier, but I didn't interrupt you. Like you were talking about the community and everything, and how there has been more than one person that has hooked me up drastically in my time of need, and I just want to shout out and say I appreciate it. I won't say everybody's names because then if I leave somebody out, I'll feel bad. But there's plenty from our chat that have actually sent me shit, and yeah, you guys know I moved and I had like a little lull in my existence, my growing, and in my jaw full jars. And yeah, thank heavens for good people. So I'll say that. But yeah, it's the autoflower. It's lilac by banana, and it's really good. And I've been trying to keep each plant separate, but I'm getting to the point where I have not enough jars. Um, but one of them I rolled up a tube, and I don't know, man. Even back in the day, when I would get weed, even growing it, certain weed just at the tip where your mouth is, it gets built up that like heavy resin. I don't know what causes that. I don't know what that is, but one of these plants, I rolled a joint and it was like sticking to my lips. It was like crazy. Um, but it's good. I'm actually impressed because yeah, I've had very limited experiences with autoflowers, and 100% honest, this is the most potent one that I've been smoking on. I mean, I did, I guess, like four different types of autos, and yeah, this is by far the best. And when I started it, I was like, my intention was when I had autoflowers. Somebody gifted me a whole bunch, and I put them all in 1 gallon containers, and I forgot that they were autoflowers. Well, I didn't forget. I just didn't think that they were going to start flowering, but they all started flowering, and they ended up being like 1 foot, 2 foot high, and yeah. These, I'm like, all right, I'll put them in the 1 gallon containers. They'll get 1 to 2 foot high. Sea person one warned me. They're like 5 footers. I'm like, in a 1 gallon container, they'll be short. But they shot up, man. I can't believe it. I top fed with some earthworm castings, and they really didn't show any deficiencies whatsoever. And they were tall, but they weren't pushed out because they were all shoved in like they were tight. And another thing is they probably would have gotten a lot more dense, maybe if I had more nutrient and more light. It started out under a measly strip, like fluorescent replacement LED fixture. I had LEDs in it. Then I went to a 400-watt high pressure sodium, and it wasn't getting warm enough. Then I went to the 600, and even the 600, I don't know if it's not. It's just weird how it feels like it's not enough light. Now that I've done, if you do 1,000 watts and then you do the LED, you can see how it makes a difference. Like things that aren't directly underneath that light did not develop fully. Anyway, even though it's not all, some of it did though. Some of it did real good. I got a couple good, nice, fat, dense chunks. But even the stuff that's not chunky, it's all resiny, it tastes good, and gets you stoned. So I'm very happy. So yeah, that's what I'm smoking on. Shout out
Even
to
more
Seed
glad to
Person.
hear that Seed Person won the giveaway now because you know
And he's not just giving to me; he's been giving out to so many people. He's definitely one of the good ones. I gotta,
hooked up
yeah,
more than I can. Like you were saying, you don't want to start naming off people
right,
because you don't want to forget. He's hooked up more people than I can recall, and that's just the ones that I've seen. Think about all the
right.
ones that I haven't seen. And shout out to Seed Person. I will say, when it comes to autoflowers or just general, I think that resin ring you're talking about is a good indication of just good weed, like good cannabis across the board. Like if I grow a new pheno and I'm smoking my first joint of it, I want it to kind of do that. Otherwise, I'm typically like, it could be
Well, I'm
stickier, it
not
could be
talking about
better.
where it's burning. You're talking about that resin ring where it's burning. I'm talking about at the mouthpiece.
Right. No,
Like,
like,
oh,
yeah,
okay, yeah, all right. Cause like I've
where it
only,
sticks to your lips.
yeah, that's. I mean, it happens, but this is like was ridiculous. And I've had a couple strains or plants or samples. I think I had some that were just samples that it was like this weird red color on the tip. I mean, it was got to the point I had to snip off the mouth part because it was clogged up that much with that stuff. So I don't know if that's regular resin. I don't know what that material is, but it definitely is something.
I would speculate maybe from like the stigmas or like the hairs or something in there while it's burning, or just because even like if you look under even like a 60x little loop at some of those, people used to tell me like, oh, the hairs don't get you high or whatever, the stigmas pistols don't get you high. I looked at they have trichomes all over them on Dank Bud. Like if you grow your own and you look at the hairs, they're covered in frosty, crystally trichomes. So they smell good, they smoke good. So within the thing, like the reddish color would surprise me because like the amberish, orangish, reddish hairs that develop late in flower, and even just resin in general, like from certain types of hash. And um, I will say, I notice it more there's two types of resin ring, like the resin ring at the tip where the cherry is, where it's smoking, and like sometimes I've seen it, it literally will like be bubbling, like right next to where the cherry is because there's so much terpene content in the flower. But even when you're like dry hitting it, and sometimes I'll have a crutch, so it's harder to notice stuff like that. And a lot of the time, admittedly now it's cones, so I haven't noticed it a lot lately. But you'll notice that stickiness on your lips after the first couple hits. And it's a certain amount of the terpenes being volatilized and other things in there that are starting to coat the joint and things like that. And you're right, it can totally block things up. So depending on a lot of people are old school and don't put any type of mouthpiece in there. And that's my one reason that I don't is a lot of time when I just was rolling with just a paper is after X amount of hits, it's like with really good stuff, it often clogs up. And you're either like chewing, biting, snipping it if you have a little multi-tool or scissors or something on you, a little pocket knife or something. You bring it down to the table and just chop off that little, you know, I don't know, centimeter piece to allow yourself to keep puffing on it. But I will say a glass tip is nice. When we met Be Real, he gave Lady Greenstock one of his joints. She challenged him to a smoke off, which hasn't yet happened, but to be hopefully happen in 2025. And all of his have and obviously because I think he makes and sells them, the funky feel tips, the glass tip in the joint. And I know it's not like the most old school thing in the world, but man, you feel like a classy motherfucker when you pull out a joint with the glass tip in it and it just
So much
pulls just
nicer
right.
too. It's so
Oh
much
man.
nicer. I
And it's got a little cross like filter or whatever on some of them. Like I had one
I
from Roar.
unabashedly at the MJ BizCon, I didn't get to escape the booth very often, but before I left on the last day, I made a run to one of the other because they were in different rooms where the marketing stuff was, but there's a it was Raw had a booth and they had like a bar set up with just all different types of already rolled cones or papers with different tips, all shapes, sizes, and everything. And I went over there and just loaded up. I just like, let me try all of these. So because I was just interested in getting all those free tips. Honestly, I didn't give a shit about the papers. I just wanted the tips. So now we've got like, I don't know, handful of different tips, and I just love them, man. Like you said, they don't really clog much because it's usually a nice wide opening on them. And yeah, and I don't know, I've quickly become a big fan of those.
It's like aeration in your soil too. Like it's like a bunch of spirals, so it's like not you're not relying on just like one little hole. It's got a whole bunch of little slits and things. So if like one thing gets clogged, there's multiple paths for the resin to get through. Another thing I will say, if you're into the whole joint smoking process, this might be a little bit hard to show on camera. One of these little glass joint holders. So when you're toking, the little you know paper or whatever cone or joint tip you have, you stick it into there, and it just puts the flame a little bit further away from your face. And I also think it allows it to cool off just a little bit more. And for whatever reason, you have to clean these every so often. You can see mine; it's naturally this kind of color, but it eventually will turn like almost like black with use. So, or it gets like a dark brown resin kind of color, like the down stem of a bong or any other smoking implement would with time and use. But they're certainly nice when you're smoking joints. It classes it up a little bit, and especially if you've got some ladies smoking with you. I will say my wife and mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law even will all partake and enjoy the joint even much more with that little glass tip holder. So making it more
Damn,
accessible.
my mom should have smoked a joint, the poor lady.
Feel that way about a lot of my my side of the family, but you know, different ways of thinking.
I'm blessed that I'm my mom's supplier and my dad's supplier. So I think that's the coolest thing ever.
Honestly,
That
that's
is,
great.
yeah.
It was funny. One of my clients like thought they were like revealing some big secret, and they like mentioned that they like smoke cannabis, and then I was like, oh, like, that's no worries, man, like all good. And he's like a young adult or whatever. And I'm like, it's it's legal in California. You could just go get it from dispensary or whatever, and like it's pretty well regulated here. And then he's like, oh yeah, but like I actually get it from my mom, and my mom gets it from my grandpa who grows it. I was like, oh shit, like hell yeah, like this is like a way cooler connection than I
It's probably
realized.
legit.
Did you tell him
Right?
about the show, Jack, or no?
I haven't gotten that deep
Yeah,
into it
that's
with him
what.
yet. I do want to
Dude,
actually talk to the mom at some point and be like,
let's get
hey,
Grandpa on the show, man.
I
That would be
want to
totally cool.
like ask what he's growing, like what genetic material is that? Like where did it even come from? Like is he just like did he get seeds in the dispensary and start growing like, some
That
random
dude's gonna
or is it
he's gonna show up one day smelling like a skunk. You're gonna be like, "Where'd you get that?"
That's what I'm saying. I guess the skunk is like no longer lost. Brandon's got one, and Aaron the grower's got the Caper Purple or Casper Purple or something like that. He's got a batch that he just harvested recently, saying that he's got really skunky stuff down there, and it looks pretty good. It's purple, and I did see some purple skunk back when I was smoking skunk, so it was green and purple. Like there was a lot of different skunky varieties. I would say I generally saw it more green, but there was some purple skunks, and so really interesting to be seeing and hearing more about it. It's something I'd hate to actually have to fly all the way to Oklahoma just for that. I'd rather do it to go see the people and Brandon and Aaron and all the many others out there that are killing it. And just there's some cool things a lot of people underestimate all the different cool things you get to see. So uh, hopefully someday I get to try that out. And Brandon, I think you're probably going to plan on keeping that cut around. Are people enjoying the skunk? What's the kind of general feedback on that so far?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Everybody that's grown it loves it. It's super awesome. I'm growing a big mom of it right now, and I'm gonna use it because I did some line work. So I took the crinkle cut. That's my favorite of everything of anything that I have found in the F2 line, and so I did some line work with that with a male, and then I'm gonna also hit that cut with a different male, and that different male is also gonna go on to skunk cut, the number 19 cut, the number 43, and the number 22. Those are the phenos that I selected out of last year. I just did like 4 pheno hunts, and so those were the different cuts that I selected out of those 4 pheno hunts, or 5 cuts, whatever it is. And so I'll do some more line work later after I hunt through these Black Lime Reserve and Chem Dog crosses that I made. And I forgot the question. I'm so stoned right now.
We were just talking about the skunks and asking about that cut. And I'm curious,
Oh
have you
yeah,
gotten to run across Aaron the Grower lately? I know he's also got one that he just had a harvest of, and have you gotten to try it?
I have not. I haven't seen Aaron in a little while.
It's all good. It's a big state, and you guys are both busy. And I know how life goes. I have friends that are 15, 30 minutes away from me, and I only see them like once every couple months. It's occasionally life gets really busy, and so you'll only see him so often. But sometimes you make the time, and not saying for you, but I'm talking about myself. That generally I feel like it tends to be worth it. But Brandon, speaking of time, I know we've got about you said you're going to be here for about the first hour, so I just wanted to touch base and double check, make sure that's still going to be the case. We got about 9 minutes left, if that is the case.
Yeah,
All right, good, good.
I'll hop
Um,
off 7.
Sounds good. I'm curious. Just in the 300. Hopefully, we're going to be going on all the way to 600, the 900, and 1,000 someday, and keeping this weekly thing alive. I know I've been here for probably 290 of the 300 shows. I was thinking back, I'm like, I've missed like definitely like less than 10 of these since this thing started, and I took over as host at like 84 or something. So it's been over 200, and I was just googling like average like what's the average amount of podcasts, and like I think it was like 12 to 20 before like a show stops. So the fact that we're at like 300, it's really a testament to the fact that we really care about this and we're dedicated to this, and um we're continual for the most part. Like we've missed like a week here and there, but for the most part, even if like I'm not here, most of the crew shows up. And like so there was a week, one of the weeks we actually all showed up, but like Zoom or YouTube or something wasn't letting us stream, so we all hung out for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and just like had the
That was one of my
non-streamed episode.
favorite episodes right there. That's something I wish we would have taped and then we could put it up on the Patreon or something. Because
We
that
don't
was a
even
good
have a
one.
Patreon, but that would be awesome. Just like the unreleased episode. It's funny because there was some like investment stuff talked about in there, especially like Noah Lee Groa had some insights that like now he'd look like a fucking, you know, really very very good foresight. And so shout out to Noah the Groa on that episode. He made some good financial I guess guesses or like bets, and they panned out very 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 well in terms of like where we are and versus then and now. And it's funny, that might be on. I have to go look through my laptop because when we weren't able to go live at a certain point into it, I remember like hitting on Zoom record. So I told you, I was like, I'm gonna record it so that I can up. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I think maybe I was worried about the investment non-grow type stuff. So I was like, maybe this one doesn't get uploaded because it was there's some speculative stuff in there, I will admit. And but man, it was just a fun time and cool that like even though we weren't live, we were all just feeling like we've dedicated this 2 hour block to this. So even when it wasn't able to happen, we just showed up and hung out and chat and tried to make it happen over and over and over and over, and it just didn't work. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna chill, smoke some, and hang with you guys, and we all just kicked back and relaxed. And I think I should make an effort from 300 to 600 to try and bring back some of the former guests, like Aaron the Grower, speaking of, Miss Nudie, and if the former host is ever willing to come back on. I know he generally tends to shy away whenever I talk with him about coming back on or just talking in general. I think he's happy doing his other things in life, so I understand that 100%. And so I'm just happy to keep this thing, keep this boat a rowing upstream or downstream or wherever we're going with it, and having a lot of fun taking some questions. We got Smoke Your Own who says wanted to tell you about the brickweed I got in Rosa Rita, a can of beans, and it weighed the same as the label on the label. That's great, man. Gotta love it when the seeds weigh as much as the flour you get. I think that's what you're trying to imply there. I might have just butchered reading it. Y'all can go back and look at the live chat, but I'm pretty sure I got most of that out correctly. I think I'm gonna go ahead and because it is the 300th episode, on top of giving away seeds and books, I'm gonna give away some wrenches because I always like when I see people that I've seen in here for a long time to make them like moderators and stuff. So if you ever see some random spam come through the chat or someone acting out of line, you can give them a little timeout or ban them permanently if they're being real crazy. And we generally tend to not have like a lot of censorship, but if somebody's being a fucking total asshole or if they're just posting links to who knows what, then that stuff's gotta get going.
You gotta get people out there with the power. They're gonna get power hungry with the wrench.
Guess you
Yeah,
have to be careful.
let's do another giveaway.
All right. Well, Tal, you announced it. So what do you got up? You've got a whole bunch of different stuff. What do you
Yeah,
got?
I'll do what Spawn was implying. I'll let them pick. I'll give them a list of what I have, and I'll let them choose what they want. But
All
right,
right.
definitely it'll be at least Amy Ace's, Stacy, which is Time Wreck by Blueberry, and Violet Beauregard, which is Blueberry by Cheesequake Mail. And then I have other ones, but the other ones aren't as tested. But I'll still give them the option if they want to try. And yeah, I guess we could do it the same way. I'll figure
I was
keep
gonna
the
say I've
number.
got a different method if you want, if you're open to it.
Yeah, sure.
This gives it a little bit of loyalty to the longer term listener, so you might be biased if you're a newer person. But I'm gonna ask a question in the chat, and whoever answers it correctly first in the live chat will be the winner.
All right, that
And
works.
Ooh, I like that.
I think y'all will like this question because it was in reference to something that I was just talking about. But oh man, we got Noah the Grower jumping in. How awesome is that? So I'm gonna
Oh,
type this
some
question
of
out
them.
as Noah jumps in. Y'all can chat uh, about what speculate on what you think I'm gonna ask.
I have no idea what you're gonna ask, man. You're gonna ask something about Tao, but you said it was something we were just talking about, and I've been smoking, and I can't remember what happened 10 minutes ago, so I don't know what we were just talking about. I got a general assumption that it had to do with cannabis, but that's as far as I get. That's most as
Has
I
to
get.
do with this show. I've typed it out, but
Okay.
I'm going to announce Noah to build up a
How's it
little bit of
going,
the hype.
everybody?
What's up, Noah?
What up, Noah? Glad you made it for 300. I was just hyping you
Yeah,
up about
glad
how
you made it, Noah.
you killed it on the unreleased episode with some of your financial you know, investment speculation stuff and how that's panned
Oh,
out
he
probably.
wasn't even, he was confident about it, and it turned out to be 100% right.
Oh, he nailed it. 100% on the head. So, had to shout you out. We are getting a little off topic there and talking about how all the weeks we've done the show and how most shows only make it 12 to 20 episodes or something like that. So, Noah, why don't you let the people know where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm Noah the Grow on Instagram. You can find me there. Just go some of this permanent marker I just pulled down, and sorry I'm late. I got my family over, but I wanted to jump on, and I'm glad to be here and be a part of the show.
So I've typed out the question. So get your keyboards ready. If you are listening live, get your little typing fingers ready. Okay. The hint is it is going to be a name, and I'm going to just enter it right now in three, two, one. Whoever enters the correct answer first is the winner of the giveaway of Tao's beans of whatever choice you are
Oh, that's a
wanting
good
from
one.
him that he's got available
You'd
at
have
his
to be a
crosses.
long time listener to know the answer to that one. There it is.
We got it
JP
from
from
JP from
NB.
NB. Shout out to JP. The question for those that are listening was, what was the name of the original host of this show, first name only? And that was Shane. So if you've been listening since before episode 84, and a long time ago, you've definitely, or went back to the archives and found some of those old episodes that he went and wiped off of the YouTube and stuff. Um, Very cool stuff, JP and many others out there. People are saying Robert. I think he was a common guest, and he's one of the most viewed episodes on the show. Actually, was his show, and then the memorial show. Literally a week later, like he passed days after coming on the show. So we did a show in his honor after that. Rob from the Atlas Plant Trainer. We used to have the Green Goddess, Eric from Green Goddess Supply on sometimes as well. So seen some of those other names. Oh, Shane, duh. Mind blown. Congrats. Some people said Chad, Dan, lots of guesses, but we got our winner. Shout out to JP from NB. Long time listener, obviously, or just had
Oh,
that.
gee. Or a
Yeah,
good listener, at least, when we talk
Pays
about it
right.
in
attention.
the
Yeah.
past.
We've mentioned it occasionally. We will occasionally say it, and like he doesn't. He used to say his whole name, and I'm pretty sure that's part of the reason he scrubbed the episodes that he was in. But that's why I just said first name only, and maybe give him a little bit more anonymity. But it's cool, and I again wanted to actually highlight that I'm not the original host. I just kind of took over as captain of the ship. I was on the first episode, and me and shout out to Skilbo, who was part of Michigan Bros Grow Show, kind of launching. Um, we were both individually on the show with Shane. He used to interview like Spartan, Brandon, Tao, me. We'd all come on one and have our little pitch. Mine was like closet growing, and Spartans would be about something else, organics, and Tao's would be about whatever it is. And like everybody had their own little episode, kind of introducing them. And then eventually, of those people that he interviewed, we all kind of came together with like a group of like how we are right now. We got 5 of us on the panel, and it was people that he had individual episodes with, and we just called it Growing with My Fellow Growers. It was simple enough on the Cheap Home Grow podcast network or whatever, Cheap Home Grow YouTube. And from that point forward, we had me, Doc, Noah, Tao, like everybody who's here right now has been pretty much been here since the beginning. I don't think
Yeah,
any of us is new.
he interviewed me one on one too.
Yeah. Tao, do you remember if you, I'm pretty sure you were there in the very beginning.
Not the very very beginning, and then he noticed I was in chat at the maybe not from even the very very beginning, but he noticed me in chat and was like, "You want to come on and like you ask a lot of good questions." I'm like, "Hell yeah!" And that the rest is history.
It's awesome, man. That's why I like doing the open panel shows. It's like he was so open with it. But I know we just hit the 1 hour mark, so I want to pass it over to Brandon to give his final thoughts and shout outs before he gets running on this 300th episode.
Yep. I got somebody coming over to the house, so I'll talk to you guys next week. It's always fun to be here, and I'm sure we'll do it for many more years.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for stopping in.
Peace out,
Take care.
Brandon.
See you,
Later,
Brandon.
man.
JP from MD. If you got Instagram, hit me up on Instagram. Or let me know in chat if you need a different way.
Check out bokashiearthworks.net for Brandon's products. He's got seeds on there sometimes. He's got his growing products and ways to organically grow. Lots of really good products. I use a lot of them myself. Micro Plus is my favorite personally, but he's got a whole bunch of really good stuff on there. And shout out to everybody who's won so far, our little giveaways. And it's cool to give back to the community. I know a lot of other shows do this a lot more. I feel I do try to keep the focus on the growing. Like, if you look at our 300 episode catalog, we do 2 hour shows every week. And like, I would say like 90 to 95% plus of that is strictly grow talk. And I think that we do a really good job of that. And when it comes to giveaways, um, on some shows, and it, as much as I do love hooking up the community, it I feel like interrupts the flow of the thought process of the topic that you're currently on. And as much as I want to give people stuff all the time, I do think what we're here for is to educate as much as possible, and it's fun to like on a 300th episode, kind of celebrate and hook up the community. Or when people are feeling generous from time to time, like we had, I think ICNE came on and hooked some people up with seeds and things like that. So if people are feeling in the mood, I'm never gonna be the one to deny that. But I don't want to make the show all about that. So if you're ever wondering, like, why don't you guys do more giveaways? That's part of the reason why. I just think it sometimes, as much as it can add to the show, it can take away from some of the content, especially for the people who aren't necessarily able to make it live, which is a big reason I'm also going to give away another pack of seeds slash book to a listener over the next week with a similar thing. I'm going to post like, tell me what your favorite strain is and why. And I'm going to go through all those selections that respond to me on X, or formerly known as Twitter, Jack_Greenstock. I'll post that tonight after the show. And I'm going to read through and I'm going to who sounds the most hungry, who sounds the most passionate about it, and I'm gonna have that person be the winner. So I know it might not be the most fair selection. You might don't try and pick what you think I like. Tell me what you really like and why you like it and who it's from, as detailed as possible if you can. You can use multiple tweets if you're not a whatever type member. I'm gonna show off Noah the Grows garden because it's looking fire over here. And Noah, how are things going over there? And it's looking pretty good from what I'm seeing. They got some stuff earlier in flower. It looks like maybe you had a harvest not so long ago, from what I
Yep.
remember.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I just posted it on Instagram, the permanent marker that I took down. I took a picture of the other one that I took down with the Dosi Lotto. I'm gonna post that here today or tomorrow. And yeah, I actually had told myself I wasn't gonna get nothing new and that I was considering it. And actually a panelist, Tao, called me out and said, I thought you said you weren't getting nothing new. And I haven't. I'm not touching nothing because I don't got no bugs and I ain't trying to get none. My last bout with Thrift was too much for me to overcome. So I'm not just, if anything, I'll pop some seeds, man. I ain't taking no quotes from somebody because everybody's always got something going on, it seems like. But
I'm with you on that. Popping
Man.
seeds. You don't catch a whole lot popping seeds, I'll say that.
True.
That's why I love seeds. And you get something that's uniquely yours too, like nobody else. Even if people have that pack, like there's a lot of Donnie Burgers out there, but there's only one of Spartans that he used to breed into a Spartan puke. There's only the one around my community that my buddy Joe fucking grows, and it smoked mine. Like his is a 10 out of 10, mine's a 9, so I let it go. I've still got a 5 pack. I'm gonna make F2s, and I'm gonna try and find one to beat him. And I don't care if it takes years. I'm gonna show him up. I'm competitive. I think it's nice to have a little competitive edge, and maybe I'll never find one that's as good as his, but I might find one that's cooler for a different reason or has different qualities I like.
As I was sitting here, I was thinking too that a really cool thing you could do for your new book, because it's specifically for the purple, is maybe include, maybe if it's just 2 seeds or 3 seeds of your current project of the Velvet Punch, whatever. Are you on F3 now?
F3 is that's where I'm planning actually to keep it. If I'm gonna do anything with it, it'd be like back crossing and or crossing out to other strains I like.
Well, that's even cooler because that's kind of where you're going to keep it. So that'll be the kind of the final representation of it. So have that come out with the book, and then that'd give it even more incentive for people to grab it.
Might figure out a way to do that. I think
There you go.
within the US for sure. I'll
Yeah, exactly. At least do that.
maybe have like a little cutout, take a little blade. I don't know. How after, selling hundreds of them, it's just signing enough of them is it takes time. Signing, packing, going to the post office, shipping them out. But it's a labor of love. I really truly enjoy it, and I will say I've gotten really, really positive feedback from the people who've gotten the books. They love them for the most part. They're like, I really enjoy this. I've gotten a lot from it. I learned something, and I just enjoy flipping through and looking at the photos or reading a little bit and learning about strains that maybe I've smoked a lot throughout the years. And I think purple will connect even more with people because it's a lot more modern strains, a lot more stuff that's currently available, where a lot of green is stuff that's like of years past and kind of the baseline of what allowed stuff in current days to be. But I think that they're both
Orange,
important,
the building blocks.
100%. I almost thought about doing like a book just on those types of strains, but I really liked the theme idea, the 50 strains of green and the 50 strains of purple, because there's like cannabis Bibles and Subcool's got a really the Dank and the Dank 2.0, which are amazing, and mine was more in the vein of like Subcool's, where it was like talking about where it came from, who bred it, what it smells, tastes like, and here's the photos and a little bit about you know you're not just looking at a cool bud. It's like you might be able to step into the grow shop or the grow room with that person and kind of smell it as they describe it. Because if you've been around enough good bud, you might be like, oh, that smells like that one I remember from back when, and or that smells like something I would really like to try. And there's a lot of stuff out there that's like that, and keeping the excitement alive, keeping the curiosity alive to keep people popping and getting interested. I know a couple of the breeders that I featured have followed me, and I've gotten to have good engagements with them. And it was never about that for me, but it's cool to, they're actual just general people like you and I, and even myself at times, it's easy to put these people on a pedestal because it's like they made this thing that's so awesome. Like they seem like they're on a different level, but it's like in Josie's case, he was so humble. He's just like, I'm just a home grower, and like, yeah, it was an accident, but I was growing the most fire stuff I could get my hands on, and I grew the stuff out and found the best one. And when I passed it out, people agreed that it was fire. So, um, a lot of things can come from humble beginnings, and I think people underestimate as a small home grower what you can do in just a closet or little home grow setup because that's where most of the best shit has come from so far. I haven't seen a major uh, LP in Canada that's put out a new strain that like has taken the market by storm. And if you have, let me know. I would love to see any LP that's breeding their own stuff and or trying even just trying like small breeders that like are not the mainstream or just popping their own seeds doing pheno hunts. Like that stuff's really. You look at some of the NorCal stuff with
You know what?
Humboldt.
Kind of on that same vein, I saw that there's a proposed law in, I believe it's Washington State. There's two. One to allow home grow, which they haven't had, or up to 6 plants, I think it is. But the other one, which I think is better, is to not only allow home grow, but to allow up to 1,000 pounds sold direct from grower to consumer without having middleman, without having transportation, without having dispos and all the other stuff. You could have grower right to look. So I'm assuming even big grows could participate, but they could sell up to 1,000 pounds direct to consumer, like ship it. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it does. And I'm here in Washington State, but I'm very skeptical that that will pass. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely be not opposed to that. But the just like you said, you can't even grow weed here if you don't have a medical card. So this seems kind of like a big switcheroo, but I mean, let's go. I'm here for it.
So it seems like a step in the right direction. There's not like people within the community pushing back against it over there, Noah.
Embarrassingly, I have not even heard of that. It just, everything happened so fast. I have not even heard of that, and I am definitely going to be digging deep into that, looking at what law number it is, everything. Like as soon as I heard that, I'm just already like, okay, I'm going to look into this.
Ears perked up. That's
Oh
what this
yeah,
show is great. We always learn. That's the beauty of it. It's
absolutely.
like you never know. Like somebody might have sent it to him, or he might have seen something posted on some social media. But it's just like we put it out there for people to be able to be active. If it is a good thing, get out there and support it. You can vote for it. You can call your people and say, "Hey, support this bill" or whatever, and
Absolutely.
do the best that you can to get behind. Because imagine being able to legally sell 1,000 pounds. Most of us don't
100%.
grow that in a year. And so you would be able to sell pretty much everything you grow and do like a farmer's market. You have a stand outside your freaking house if you wanted to.
Wish I would have
All right.
saved that article. I would have sent it to you. But that what I thought was like it raised my eyebrows as I was reading it. The thought process in the bill of the number of the 1,000 pounds that they brought up was they said that that number wasn't enough to even affect anything on the commercial side. And I'm like, wow, that's wonderful to hear a lawmaker that's actually speaking truth. Like normally you hear 1,000 pounds and they're patting it's usually a sheriff patting himself on the back for busting 1,000 pounds and it's this huge giant amount. And really it's just, a bucket out of the ocean. I mean, you're not you're not doing, especially when you're talking about cannabis, you're not doing anything. What are you doing? Wasting time. But um yeah, to allow even 1,000, that could be somebody's livelihood right there, 1,000 pounds. Jesus, that's doable in a year for a person who's really buckles down, and that could be enough to where they don't have to have another job. I think that's amazing. Even with the prices as low as they're going, I think you could still survive off that.
Oh, you definitely could. I'm shocked they wouldn't start with like 1 pound. I
Me
mean, because
too.
I
I
mean
was
that's
really,
10
that's
really
pounds, 20
surprised.
pounds, 12 pounds, whatever. But like 1,000 is really generous. And I'll say at 1,000, and I always give this, and people are like, oh, you can get weed for less. You can also pay more depending on the market that you're in and things like that. $1,000 per pound at 1,000 pounds is $1 million. So somebody could, in theory, have $1 million a year business at what is like, I think, a pretty reasonable, that's like $2 something a gram for $1,000 pound. And a lot of us paid a lot more than that for a long time. So I think if you're growing really good, high quality stuff, not that you're gonna necessarily crank out 1,000 pounds, but if they allow overages to not like be destroyed after a year, like if you have some of last year's harvest and the year before and things like that, and you properly label and store it, I don't see any reason that there shouldn't be cottage industries, farmers market type setups where people can grow their own and sell direct to consumer. We have secret sessions and pop-ups where events happen where people without licenses go and happen to sample a whole bunch of different stuff and maybe come home with a bunch of stuff that they like and exchange, goods or services or cash or whatever it is to make everybody right by the time they go. So there is that independent market outside of the regulated market that is continuing to exist in California and I'm sure elsewhere. I would be surprised if it wasn't in Michigan. And I know it's in Ohio still, which is a relatively newer market in terms of their legal process. But I knew people that were bringing in 10 pounds at a time from California in a van, like that's part of a market because that influenced the local, people are, one person would buy 1 pound and then that would go out to a different part of the state and that would be broken down into eighths, ounces, quarters,
Yeah,
dimes,
yeah.
nickels, whatever.
Well, think about it, though. That's every commodity, right?
Yeah.
Bananas, same way. You buy a shipload, right? And then you break it down from there. I did find that for you, Noah, though. It's the state, as SB must stand for state bill out there, but State Bill 5403
sweet.
is the one you want to look
Or
at.
Senate bill, maybe.
Oh,
Maybe
maybe the
state bill.
Senate bill. Yeah, there you go. It's probably that. That makes way more sense. Senate Bill 5403 in Washington State.
Still good to have the number. And even if it is state bill, Senate bill, it doesn't matter. It's semantics. It's if you type in SB and then that number, you're good to go. And honestly, like this is what I'm talking about. Like the dominoes are moving in the right direction for the most part. We're getting a lot of wins here and there, thanks to organizations like Normal, thanks to organizations like Last Prisoner Project, and others that are advocating for reasonable things. Like I think plant count's going to disappear in the next 100 years, whether it's the next one or 10 or 20. it's going to go away. It might go to square footage. It might go to how much property you own. It might go to how many pounds you harvest and hold or whatever. But like, we're going to get to a point where they're just going to be like, you know what? It's like basil. Grow as much as you want. Like, give it to your friends. Give it to your family. Who cares? It's a plant. It's an herb.
I want to give a huge shout out to my buddy Marcus, better known as Bubble Man. He had me on Hash Church today, and he had a really special episode today at Hash Church. It was the mental health episode, something that's not really talked about a lot, I don't think even enough in cannabis field. And it's a lot of time, in the shadows. And so it was a real special episode, and there was a lot of touching stories. I was wiping tears out of my eyes uh, towards the end of the show, and I couldn't even make it for the whole show. But if you guys have a chance, maybe you're trimming or something, I would put on that episode. That was a really good episode. And I've already seen several people, shout out to them in chat, who were there watching it and shouting out the show here in our chat. And much love to everybody. Thank you for the support. And I agree, that was a really good episode.
It is something I'm actually, my background is in psychology. I was going to study, I was working on my master's planning to be a counselor. I ended up starting a sort of business in a related field, but didn't end up going all the way down that path. But part of the reason was I experienced my own issues with mental health. One that I could talk about pretty openly because it doesn't impact me really at all anymore was seasonal affective disorder, which sounds kind of silly or kind of almost made up to some people, but like where I was at in Ohio, it was cloudy and gray almost all the time, like 250 to 300 days a year. It was gray. Whether it was rainy or snowy or whatever, we barely saw the sun. And I was much paler. I didn't get enough vitamin D. And even if I try to take like tablets or whatever, I don't think you're really going to get good enough vitamin D unless you're doing it like intravenous or whatever. So, or going outside for like 15 minutes in good sunshine. Like um, so that was something I dealt with and experienced, and it's a shitty feeling. And there's like lights and stuff. Like I'm sitting in front of a light right now. That there's things out there that can simulate sunlight or whatever. But my remedy was I moved to a warmer part of the country that I'm happier in. But that came with its own difficulties. It's expensive and being far away from family and building your own life and business and things like that. But the mental health aspect of cannabis is often overlooked. And when I moved to Florida for grad school, I didn't have access to cannabis, and I underestimated its ability to help me with my own issues, from sleep to depression on and off here and there, to other ailments that I don't necessarily want to get in my whole life story here with everybody. But it is good to open up, and it is good to tell people about as much as you're comfortable sharing. However, I will say sometimes, our community is amazing, but be cautious with what you share online because sometimes it is weaponized against people. And I have seen negative results come from stuff like that, especially with something as personal and intimate as the mental health space. So just be wary at times of who you're sharing certain stuff with because some people are nefarious and bad actors out there will use personal information against you for one reason or another, or even just put you in a shitty mood because they're a troll and they want to make you feel bad. But 99 out of 100 people that are here or more are going to be the people that'll lift you up and build you up and say, hey, I've been through that too. I know what it's like. I live far away, or I had family members die, or I had this happen. I had my grow get fucked up by a herm, or I had my grow get fucked up by pests, or I lost it all. I lost my job. I lost my wife. I lost this or that. Like people have gone through, you name it, anything and everything. And being part of a community, that's one of the things is like, you're not alone and you realize like other people have gone through it and they came out on the other end. They survived. Although it was difficult, I think we had an episode at the beginning of the year talking about how learning from our mistakes, sometimes those were my best lessons. They were the hardest learned, oftentimes. Um, it's nice to have somebody who can walk you through something and show you how to do it. But when that person goes away or moves or dies or whatever it is, and you have to do it all on your own, that's when you think you really start learning a lot of lessons. And some of them are hard to learn, some of them are easier to learn, and some of it comes down to preference. But it's all right to make mistakes. It's all right to be down and sad and have your ups and downs. Like a lot of our community gets caught up, I think, in the peace and love and happiness and positivity. And I think it is great to feel those emotions, but it's also okay to feel like shit, to be sad because something happened, or to be stressed because your job is tough, your work is tough, your life is tough, or circumstances change. I had a really hectic situation with a neighbor for a long time that was getting me and my wife down. They were just harassing me and everyone else just for no reason at all. Like they moved in, nobody even knew them, and they just started harassing. They had like 7 restraining orders by the time they got evicted in like a few month period. It was a terrible situation, like vandalizing people's property, assaulting people, just off, and speaking of mental health, they very likely had their own mental health issues. But I think it does come down to the point where if you're doing that kind of stuff, you need to get help, whether it's from family or uh, mental health facilities. Um, it's not okay to harm others or damage people's property that they work hard for, regardless of people's mental health situation. I work with people in the autism space, cerebral palsy, and other behavioral stuff, and many of them have to have one-to-one individuals with them all the time because if they weren't, they'd either harm themselves or others or damage property and cause, you know, things that we don't want to have in a society generally, and they're avoidable and preventable. So I think there's a responsibility upon everybody to try the best you can to address your mental health independently on your own, trying to seek out what remedies, whether it's cannabis or seeking therapy, traditional or non-traditional methods, and also leaning into your community, whether you think you have one or not. A lot of the time, people think, oh, because my family disagrees with me about politics, I can't reach out to them. Like people are on the verge of taking their own life, something that serious. Like you might only have one, depending on your faith. But we know we have the here and now, and like life, I believe, is very valuable and important. And a lot of people get to that point where they're questioning, like, should they be here? Should they take their own life into their own hands like that? And they don't realize, like, if their family knew how they were feeling, they'd go to the ends of the earth to make sure that they're feeling more supported and not feeling that way, or tried the best they can, or help them get that support. And even if they don't have that, there's hotline numbers you can call. There's people you could DM me. Shit, I don't get that many DMs if you're in that place and you need somebody. Fucking reach out. And if it's not me, reach out to someone that you feel close enough to, or somewhere. It might not even be a close thing. It's just like if you have no other alternative. I read a account of a guy who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and he survived. He was trying to take his own life. And he said, like, the second his hands left the rail, he immediately regretted it. And, like, the whole fall, he thought he was going to be, his life was going to be over. And he hit the water and he got very severely injured. And the rest of his life, he, you know, dealt with that. But I think turned it to a positive and went on to help people and counseling people and helping them not make the same decisions that he made and wrote a book and things like that. But sometimes you can turn a negative into positive, but sometimes it's like everybody's on their own journey. So even if there isn't somebody that you can look to that has the exact same thing that you're going through, um, there's a lot of people out there that might have a little bit of understanding or sympathy or empathy, whatever it is.
And I like the cannabis community because to me it feels like the old Christmas movie, The Island of the Broken Toys or whatever it is. It's like we all have our own story, so it's like nobody's
Misfits.
perfect. Yeah, we're all the misfits, right? No, nobody's perfect. We all, have a little bit of
Well,
broken parts, but and that's
Except for
I
what makes
Tao.
it,
I am the exception. Yeah, I'm
except for
sorry.
Java.
We are all green sheep, I would say. Like
Yeah,
instead of the black sheep of the family, I always like to refer to myself as the green sheep because
yeah.
in some families that's like a something that would make you separate from the flock. But for the most part, I think like Spartan's saying, like something brings all of us to it. It could be an injury, it could be a family member getting sick, it could be, a million different things. But I'm happy that we're all part of it and that something brought us all here. It could have just been trying to have a little bit of fun as a teenager or something like that. And then you realize, wait, this is actually making me reduce my stress and not feel like so much shit all the time. So,
Well, that's the thing we all have in common, and it's like we're self-medicating. We're medicating something, right? And that's what we're doing. And like, there's so many different diseases. I was bringing, highlighting a few that like they're trying to say, well, there's more people with this disease that's using cannabis than doesn't. Well, maybe they're medicating with it. You ever think of that? Do you think instead of saying cannabis is causing a disease, do you ever imagine that maybe it's a medicine? You know what I mean? And so the people that are sick are the ones that are going to be more apt to be using it. And so there's going to be a higher number of people that are sick using it than maybe that aren't. I mean, I don't, sometimes something, it takes somebody from the outside looking in to see something that's so like common sense, right? But everybody sometimes will get lost in, I want to see the white paper. I want to see the white paper. But when the white paper says something that just doesn't make common sense, you have to still step back. And I think Tao's one of my favorite guys to do, though, do this. Either bring up another white paper that will be completely contradictory to that one, or just show you, shine a flashlight on that common sense and be like, look at this. What does this even make sense? So, yeah, thank you, Tal, for that. That just came up in my head.
That's always good to remember. And go ahead, Tal.
I was just saying, yeah, I get into discussions all the time where I explain like a lot of the peer review papers now are getting redacted. They're a lot of people are getting in trouble. They're getting caught with fraudulent peer paper reviews. And there's instances like the one a reporter did a story on chocolate, um, and did like a fake study saying that eating a lot of chocolate is healthy for your diet and help you lose weight. And he paid money to get it published in a peer review journal or whatever. And then the media found it and did stories like in the media claiming it was all true. And the guy's like, yo, I just made this shit up and paid to get it published. And now it's in the news. So everything is questioned. I question everything so much now because what really started it, and I wasn't when I smoked marijuana, I started using cannabis at the beginning. I was like, all these people that all the bad press about cannabis is totally bullshit. And they were people that we should be able to trust. The federal government, the government saying it's bad for you, it'll kill you, it'll do this, that, turn you into a murderer. And I realized that, yeah, people that we should be able to trust lie to us. And as time went on, I realized they lie a lot. So yeah, I question everything. So
You got to check out Hash Church. You would love this Dr. Allen, I forget his name, this is like his last name, but he kills
yeah,
me.
Dr. Mark
He,
Allen or David Allen. Yep.
yeah, David Allen. And he's been doing these shorts with the Bubble Man that I've been loving. There's these short information dense shorts. They did one today about cannabis in the Bible and where it was found in the Bible. And so it's like when you're talking to somebody who's, a huge believer in the Bible, it gives you common ground. And he, the way he was talking today on a Hash Church about just all of the medical field and the way things are done, it was just refreshing to hear it coming from a doctor, right? It was just refreshing, and so I think there's even common ground there, and I think I said on that show too that I think there's common ground for herbal medicine and conventional medicine to work together. It doesn't have to be
More
with
and more
one or
doctors
the other.
More and more doctors are coming out on cannabis podcasts, are using it in their practice, both publicly or privately. I've went to a couple doctors for a few injuries, and they're asking me about pain management. I was like, I prefer to just use cannabis, and they're like, that's great. Go ahead, stay on that. If it's working for you, then stick with it. Like, we're not gonna, take away anything from you. We're not gonna give you anything extra if you don't want any more. Then cool, that works. I'm like, all right, good. I know I didn't need anything additional. And in comparison to like the average in the US, is four drugs or more, with 20% of Americans being on five drugs or more. And not to say that, certain drugs are miracle workers and will extend people's lives and things like that, but a lot of them have a lot of side effects and a lot of downsides and negative effects. And what Tao was talking about with the whole, you know, all the past research on cannabis that was like, oh, it's going to kill you, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. There's this thing called GELL dash MANN, amnesia, which is the effect or tendency to believe information in the media, even when it is inaccurate and contradicts what you know. And the basically the reference a lot of people would refer to with that is you read like the whole newspaper, right? And then it comes to like your specialty. You're like a plumber or something, and it says, "Oh, here's this new thing about plumbing," and you're like, "This is totally fucking inaccurate." Well, that section of the newspaper, you're like, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But then you don't necessarily apply that to the rest of the newspaper. So it's like they don't know what the fuck they're talking about in any of them. If you're really a specialist, you're like, this is just regurgitated bullshit that they might have just pulled some white paper that maybe didn't even have backing and support and real peer reviewing, but it sounded sensational. Hey, eating chocolate is good for you. So we're gonna that's gonna be a headline that's gonna sell. So people are gonna buy that and they're gonna make a bunch of money selling that newspaper. And maybe they'll eventually do, oh, hey, we actually found out that this is not accurate. So we're gonna redact that story that we ran on whatever date. And no one ever really holds their feet to the fire. So there's no accountability. And journalism and science has gone to shit in a lot of regards because of that. And unfortunately, we don't necessarily get over that gel man amnesia. We tend to maybe watch news or read media and just believe it for what it is and take it at its word. But when you become a specialist in something, you can often realize like at the top, oftentimes even the specialists will disagree. So sometimes it's hard to actually come to a genuine conclusion depending on how complex the topic is. But it's like if you ask what's the best way to grow cannabis, right? Something really vague like that. There's going to be people out there that say organic. There's going to be people out there that say synthetic or deep water culture or whatever. But everybody's going to give it light. Everybody's going to give it a certain amount of nutrients. So there's like commonalities, and then there's unique stylings, and then it all gets down to that. It depends when you really get into the weeds with anything. It's like every situation is unique, and if anybody's being honest with something or nuanced about something, that's the beauty of life. Is it allows you to take that time to learn and grow and have some of the experience for yourself, see what works for you, and see what doesn't work for you. That even might somebody might be like, this is the best way to do things. It's my absolute favorite. Like me with sips, self-irrigating or sub-irrigating pots or planters. I love them. But there's somebody out there who's probably tried them and hates them. It didn't work for them at all. And that's fine. Maybe they
On
didn't do it right
record,
or
I've
maybe they
yet
just,
to hear from that person, but
me
there might
either.
be one out there. That's
There
such a
might be.
problem.
They might be out there. I also have not come across them. But it could be a nutrient line. It could be a light. It could be whatever it is. But some stuff works for some people and some stuff doesn't work for some people. So I got this really cool watering thing that I thought was super cool because I saw people using it in their living soil. It's like a DRAM, DRAMM, like slow. It was like a high volume, low um, basically pressure. So like spread out the water so that like it wouldn't like blow your soil all around. And I thought it was like the super coolest thing ever, but it like barely made a difference at all. It actually became really inconvenient and like didn't mount to my watering can super well. So this thing I was all hype about was like as good as like the, few dollar one at like the Walmart or whatever. So I was like, oh man, I paid like way more. I paid more for this whole, you know, the nozzle of this thing that I paid for like all my other watering cans combined, and it ended up like sucking. So that thing is, probably sitting in the back of a cabinet or got tossed. But some people have used it and love it. So I'm not like trying to shit on this company because they do make like it's probably a good quality product in the right context, but my context was not the right one. So my grow is too small to really make it work. And if I had big beds and outdoor or greenhouse grows, I'd probably go something that route. But found out myself firsthand that, sometimes what works for others doesn't work for you. And that's just one of my many examples I could probably give on that case. Oh man, I reminded me, somebody asked me about the moisture meter. And they're like, what wood setting do you have it on? There's like 27. I thought there was only two. And they're like, what letter do you have it on? I'm like, I don't even know. I'm like, find whatever bud you're about to smoke, test it on that, see what that number is and what you like it at. But I need to get back to that person, so I'm gonna pull that out later tonight. But yeah, that's Jack remembering things on the fly there that DMs I haven't gotten back to necessarily. I probably replied, but I just didn't. I said I'll get back to you on that, and then never followed up. So sorry to that person out there who's listening with their Tavul meter anxiously. But like I did give them some feedback, like, hey, test it on bud that you're smoking, because if it's good enough to smoke, then it should read on a meter somewhere that figure out what that reading is, and go from there. So
Right after grow chat brings up a good point with sip containers. If you use them improperly, they can be an issue. He said he's definitely seen people use sips improperly, grew with amendments, but never watered the top to break them down. So it probably formed this nice thick layer of concrete with dry amendments. But yeah, that's one thing with my sip containers. I don't use the tube for water. I use it for air exchange, and I water through the top, just through the media.
it's a good point. I do like to water in the tube just because oftentimes I'll cap the thing with like a shower cap style. More recently, I've been using the rice hulls or whatever, or a mulch layer, but even watering through that sometimes, unless I did amendments, I tended to go lighter and lighter and lighter, like on Spartan and many other suggestions, because even with organics, like you can tend to overdo it in time. So making sure that you're not re-amending too heavily. Unless my plants start to show that they're like craving something, I try to go nice and light. So, but when I do, it's generally like, I don't know, gypsum or like worm castings or something. I'll scratch that in and then I'll water the next watering onto the top layer. And then I'll go back to just watering through the tube because with the setup how it is, it really does like wick really well. Like if you have at least a quarter to half inch, maybe inch of mulch and you pull that away, if there's water in the tube, like, and I dig my finger in there, there's water spread throughout the soil, like from corner to corner, edge to edge, like the earth box and city picker. they grow such phenomenal plants, not just cannabis. Like my plumeria in my city picker is like it's been booming every season. It's like I never grew plumeria before. People are asking me like, hey, what are you doing with that thing? Like I'm helping them out, but I'm like, get one of these. And like if they don't get the city picker, I still try to help. But the right soil and proper nutrients, good sunlight, good watering practices is generally going to help a lot of plants thrive and succeed. So if you learn cannabis or plumeria or anything else, tomatoes, you can grow a whole bunch of different things, which is one of the side benefits. Do you guys have any favorite non-cannabis plants that you like to grow throughout the year?
I grow a lot of flowers and bushes and stuff, but obviously cannabis is my favorite to grow.
Hey, I can't blame you. It's my first and favorite.
I got a lot of different house plants and stuff. A lot of these are Emily's, but I like the aloe. To have aloe around is always cool. I love to have that around just for stuff for myself, like have it near the kitchen because if you burn yourself or you cut yourself, you can use it either way. And so aloe is a big one for me. And I also like to eat plants, so I like to grow a lot of the a lot of the edible plants, be that herbal or vegetable.
Those
I
are some
have
of the best
a
things to eat.
I have a spider plant that I got from my father-in-law in 2018 that I've kept alive this whole time, and that I make little babies up and give to my friends too. So I like house plants
I do
too,
that
and
too, man. I love
yeah,
that.
it's fun, you know.
Shout out Abolish Farms. He gave me a spider plant in a Spartan heads on the pot. Oh wow, it has been years and years ago, man. I don't know how long ago, and I have given like babies off of that plant to I don't know how many different people. It has reproduced a billion times, man.
I love that like plants can be cloned like that, whether it's aloe or little succulents, things like that, like simple, easy to grow. Like you just stick it and forget it and they just grow. Like my one neighbor, she grew aloe. It was funny because like some scientist told her he was like an ag scientist, and this is like I don't know, 60s, 70s or whatever. They were like good friends, but he worked in the ag space out here in California, and was telling her that she couldn't grow like aloe like in a field or like non-potted or what. I can't remember the exact specification, but she's like, "Yeah, you can. Like I grow it all around my house." And he's like, "No, you can't. Like it doesn't grow well. It doesn't do this and that." And she's like, "Yeah, you can. Like I've got it all over my house." And like had to like bring this dude and like show him, like physically like show it to him for him to actually believe it. And it's still she moved out long ago, but there's still aloe plants all around the spot. It's like kind of kitty corner from where I'm at. So that's one that I don't grow myself because there's literally like a forest of it around. Like it's this whole unit is just flocked in aloe on every single direction. So um, thankfully to have lots of that and lots of limes too. We have a little lime citrus tree that puts out lots of stuff like that locally. So certain things that I probably would have grown myself. It's interesting when you have it just in your community at large. It can disincentivize you a little bit to grow it yourself. But I think it's always worth learning how to grow different things because you never know. Like I think I'm hearing things about certain pathogens going around that might impact food supplies in some regards. So like if you keep your own chickens and you have your own eggs, you don't care what's going on at the markets, right? So or if your friend does or somebody down the street, you know,
You still
that's
care
a whole
about those
different.
same pathogens though, in the bird
Oh yeah,
flu,
you want to
things
avoid
like
them.
that.
You want to avoid them for sure, but I think it's a lot less likely for some guy who's got, at least an acre or two behind his house and he's got a little coop. The thing that they're worried about is like coyotes and shit and getting in there eating them. But I haven't heard very often, and I could be wrong. I haven't done enough research on this about home chicken keep. I have actually seen it, and I do my YouTube feed, the algorithm is crazy. It gives me all sorts of different stuff that I'm interested in, but occasionally like stuff like that, chicken keeping will come up. And some people will not just bird flus or whatever, but different, just like cannabis, man, like anything. Like there's pests and pathogens and all sorts of diseases that you've probably never even heard of that can happen. And if you dig deep enough in there, somebody's experienced it in one state or another. And some of them are real terrible to see. I hate seeing live animals struggle and be suffering like that. But it's good that researchers out there are documenting it and preventing it and things like that. So
Cannabis is still my favorite though.
Yeah, aloe was the only plant I really I helped other people. My buddy grew a garden, vegetable garden, which I gave him some compost and some earthworm castings and stuff. But aloe was the only other plant I really ever grew.
It's a good one.
Oh,
You can clone cannabis with it.
I did wheatgrass. I got some wheatgrass seeds that I
I
used as
love
a cover
wheatgrass.
crop. Yeah, it looks really cool when I grew it out. It was like my container just looked like a an awesome new baseball field or something. You know, it's like green
So
grass.
fresh
It
and
was so
lush.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
You can throw those under some T5s or a little LED strip. Dude, people grow like flats of those and sell it at farmers markets. And I used to go like Jamba is what it's called now. It used to be called Jamba Juice. They'd have like a wheatgrass
Uh,
shot or a double. And whenever I'd have a night of drinking, I'd go and get one of those with like a little orange wedge or whatever to kind of, it was like a
Make
chaser.
it taste good.
Yeah, it's like you take the wheatgrass shot and then you take the bite of the orange wedge, just like a tequila shot, and then like a slice of lemon or something like that. But I got to the point where I was like, you know what, I don't even need the orange wedge. I started to grow to like the wheatgrass, and during certain, if they got a good patch specifically, you could taste it. If you grow it yourself, you can just eat it or juice it. But a lot of good health benefits to any microgreens in general, from broccoli to sprouts and things like that. There's a lot of simple stuff. You just get a bunch of seeds, sprout them, and harvest them when they're an inch or two tall underneath the thing, and throw them on top of a salad, or you can just eat them straight, or blend them up and put them in a smoothie or juice them. Lots of different healthy ways. You can even do the same with cannabis. Micro sprouts, like get a bunch of hemp. People do it for SSTs, seed sprout teas, where they would sprout a bunch of hemp seed, which is the same enzymes and things that cannabis seed has, and then they would either blend it up or soak it, and then they'd use that to water into their seedlings or early veg plants.
Yep, that barley's a common one too that's used. There's a lot of things you can use for that. Beans are really good ones. Soybeans and uh, that's for enzymes too. It'll help break down things in the soil.
Have you guys heard or seen of any pathogens or pests going around in your areas at all lately?
Man, it's winter time here in Michigan. There's not much anything going around. If it's going around, you brought it with you.
I know in the commercial space, when they're running stuff indoor all the time, it can get messy and some stuff lingers, like hoplite and viroids and things like that can still just tend to be pesky in people's grow.
They definitely can. Like I said, it took me a long time to get rid of the thrip, and I uh, I swear I know where I got it too, and it shouldn't have happened. But I, uh, I'm just not in a hurry to do anything. I'll just chill with the four I got, work from there, and figure it out a little bit down the road. So
Yeah, it can be a real nightmare going through some of the stuff that can come in, and that's why I'm tend to be a seed sprouter and not taking in lots of stuff. The few times I have, I thankfully learned from my own and others' mistakes and have quarantined and saved myself some headaches on a couple occasions because I always joke when I got it from a commercial setting, like a, clone nursery or whatever, for my own situation. Uh, both times, the two times I tried, I got pests of some regard. And then the two times I got clones from like a homie, they were clean. So I was like, the homie hookup is the way to go, at least for me. I know some people that's not the case. You maybe don't trust your girlfriends, but you know, your gromies sometimes can hook you up with some really clean, nice, healthy cuts. And that was my case with the J1 and cherry pie in the most recent cases. And I've given my buddies not only cuts, but like some really healthy, what some would call teens, like really tall plants, but they might have been seed sprouts that I grew out in veg and decided like, okay, I sex tested them and it's female, but like I have like seven females and I only need two or three. So like here's three super healthy, tall, vigorous plants. Like, do you want one? And it's been nice to be able to get like at least a bud or two, a little baggie from those people when they grow that out to see how theirs expressed in their area versus mine.
I've just been gotten so lazy with IPM because of the predator lights from camera shut off. It's like I am still spraying it. So I don't know if I brought it up on this show, but I think this is important to bring up is that there's still things that I don't know, right? And one of those things that I don't know is I do know that UVC affects the down to the DNA level on the pests. What I don't know is how much of that is happening to the plant, right, at the DNA level. I know that it's so little that I don't notice a difference when I'm off the harvest and things like that. But if I were to clone and continue that generation over time, there is an argument that maybe there could be, mutations, things like that. So I'm not using the UVC lights in my veg on purpose. And the reason for that is that's where I take my clones, right?
Right.
So everything I take in veg is still cloned off the original generations. Nothing's been even introduced to as far as UVC goes to them. And then those plants go from veg to flower. Those ones do get the UVC light. And so I think I'm protected there as far as, I don't want to call it genetic drift, but genetic mutation or whatever else you want to call that. But
I'd be curious to see, like I talked about earlier, putting one out into the sun over summertime in the very rare specific case if like you had a clone that started just doing poorly and you're like, well, it's not summer yet, it's winter, and maybe I'll start hitting this with the predator light because like who knows, maybe it'll fix it up. Like I can't tissue culture, but I've got this light. So maybe I'll try hitting that. If that ever comes about, I'd be curious to see if you like if Spartan glue or something ever gets like tired. You're like, I'm
yeah.
gonna start predatoring this thing up even in veg because it's like it's already lost its luster.
Well,
Like
honestly,
when
the thing is, that's interesting to think. But for one, UVC doesn't ever hit the ground, and it's usually filtered out by the atmosphere. So
right, right, right,
plants aren't normally exposed to that.
right.
But at the same time, all of my plants will be exposed to that in flower every time. So they, technically speaking, should get that. No, because I wouldn't be taking a clone from it after the UVC exposure. You're right. So then it wouldn't get any rejuvenation effect if that were the case, if it were doing something on the positive end. But
Really interesting stuff. And now that you have the technology, you can get to trial. The beauty is like home growers get it in their hands and you get to mess around it and play with what spectrum works the best, what IPM protocols work the best. And I'm really excited that you're gonna to continue to experiment with that and see how it works out over the next coming years and hopefully many others do as well. And Spartan, I know in about 15 minutes, I think you probably are going over to the Michigan Bros Grow Show, so I'll hand it off to you for final
no,
thoughts and shout outs.
they're not having a show today, so I can hang to
Oh,
the end.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, we got Spartan for another 15 minutes. It's like a
I
bonus.
want to shout out. I don't know if I saw him in chat earlier, maybe, but Red Setter. I want to shout out Red Setter Farm and Becca Meets Cannabis. They're bringing they're pheno hunting like crazy. They're doing it human wise too, and they're bringing new life into this world here either tonight or tomorrow morning. I haven't heard yet, but they're at the hospital now. And much love out to you guys.
Hell yeah, big shout out to them. And Red's actually going to be featured in 50 Strains of Purple because he grew one of the featured strains. And when I was talking about, hey, people, if you've grown one of these
Nice.
strains, send me some photos. And he's an OG. I very much trust the provenance, as Skilba One taught me that word a long time ago, and basically the lineage of where it came from, the tracing it back, who he got it from. And so I trust his sources. And when he grew it, it looked fire, much deserving of being in the book. And so shout out to Red. He's going to be in 50 Strains of Purple. And shout out to the little one on the way. One of my buddies I just talked to was talking about he's got a second on the way, and it's just beautiful to see new life coming into the world. My brother's got a couple kids, and it's always great to see families grow and expand, and hopefully have continually good health and good positive things coming their direction. And I'm always sending good positive thoughts and prayers anyone's direction whenever new life is being brought into the world, because so many things can happen. You never know, and so it's always great just to. I think we underestimate how lucky we are just to be able to see, breathe, hear, walk, talk, do the general things that a healthy person can do. But even if you can't do some of the things that I just named or other stuff, it shouldn't hold you back. There's a lot of people that have limitations that are incredible. There's like Paralympians and other people out there that are would blow me away in a million different ways, and it's like I'm fully able-bodied, so to speak. But some of these people, like, they can outrun me in the mile or outswim me or outjump me, and like there's this incredible people out there. So never let your limitations um, stop you from doing what you want to accomplish, because there's people out there that maybe have done more amazing things than you would ever have believed. And human beings are incredible. And never let somebody tell you that you can't, because chances are you can. You just got to set your mind to it and work hard and just be dedicated. That ferocious dedication, I think, at times is one of the most powerful qualities that human beings have. It's like if you really have a desire and a drive for something, you almost always can make it happen if it's within our reality. So never necessarily forget that, whether it's growing or life. That's one of those things. It's like if you work really, really hard and you set your goals and you think about it, you're gonna eventually achieve in most cases. And if not, it's a worthy pursuit. Better to try and not succeed and than never try at all.
Yeah, follow that passion because passion's going to drive you to continue to keep going. And And that's what you can see right away, I think. And like if I were to walk into a commercial grow and give my opinion about whatever, yeah, looking at the plants is going to tell me a lot, but what's going to tell me the most is talking to the grower, talking to the person who's taking care of the plants and seeing if there's that passion there or not. Because even if you don't have the knowledge, but you have the passion, you're going to get that knowledge. That's going to come. I'm not worried about that. But if you don't have the passion, you're not going to want to do, you're not going to want to walk up every row while the plants are watering to see if the emitters are clogged. You don't care. You know what I mean? And it's just going to take passion is what pushes you to do that extra 10%. And it's going to make you stand out. So. Yeah,
And have the
I
courage
agree.
to be different. Like
Yeah.
I walked around and talked to hundreds of different flower producers, growers, whatever you want to call them, brands. And the few that stood out to me, like Spartan just said, I didn't even, in some cases, get to smell the flower. Maybe it was sealed up, but just like talking to them, I was like, oh, I need to try to sample that when I can, because like there's a dispensary that you can get stuff later for like whatever discount. Like you scan this QR code at each individual booth that you're interested in, and then you get to try the stuff later on. And so the couple that I was like hearing how they talked about it, just because we have enough knowledge that like some people are just salespeople. They're trying to this terpene profile is the best, and here's who got the hottest thing. And granted, there's a lot to that. There is important, but like when they're just using buzzword after buzzword after buzzword, versus like this guy's like, oh, my mom taught me how to grow, and like I grow in this little part of Humboldt, and like I grow these really old school strains because like even though they take longer, like there's not really a whole bunch of it in the market, so I'm not really competing with anybody. It's just like our own little unique stuff, and I was like, damn, I gotta try this guy's stuff. And when I did, I was like blown away, just like super happy to try different unique things and I think people having that passion, it allows you to have the courage to say, even though, most of the market might not have ever even heard of this stuff, we're gonna grow it the best we can and put it out there and maybe turn people on to some of the stuff that isn't currently desired because the market doesn't even know to ask for it. Maybe they got into smoking later and they didn't realize that like just because a bud isn't like a golf ball that's super frosty, it can still get you incredible effects. You can still have amazing flavor and it can still be highly desirable, even if it's not, what you see on a High Times magazine or whatever. If that even does High Times magazine still exist anymore? I think they went through a lot of stuff.
I don't know what it is anymore. I think High Times still exists. I'm not sure if it's still a magazine.
It was like a weed brand for a little while. I think it was in Michigan. They were doing sales. I think they tried in California too. They were an events brand as well for a little while. So it spun off a whole bunch of different directions. And I don't know its current status, but for a while, that to me, like as an Ohio boy, I'd go to like Borders, the bookstore.
Oh
I'm not,
yeah.
don't think those are even around anymore either. I'd grab myself like a paintball magazine or like a basketball magazine, like ESPN or something, and then I'd grab a weed magazine and like hide that underneath the sports one so that no one would like clock me, fucking little teenage boy reading this cannabis magazine or whatever. And thankfully, it wasn't like the adult magazines that were like sealed in plastic or whatever. Like you could just like go in, and they had them all on the little bookshelves, and you could just pull them off and like read a little bit. So, but even just the covers, like seeing the buds, like how frosty they were, and like the first, I think purple buds I saw were probably on a High Times magazine before I actually saw purple in real life, because like it took a while for that to get to Ohio, unless it was like grown locally and it just happened to be a cold snap or whatever, which did happen. We had that stuff was around too, but not like what you're seeing in modern times. And I think that said, bag appeal is one thing that needs to be scaled back a little bit, and people need to start going into the flavors and the tastes again, because and the effect, because flavor and taste, I think, is even a short. I think it,
I think flavor and taste is getting to the point of THC, in my point.
yeah.
Too focused on, and I think effect is getting left on the wayside, and I think that's a mistake
I used
because
to think they were intrinsically tied. I used to think flavor guided the effect, and in some cases it does. Obviously, terpenes have known effects and things like that, so they can be tied one to one. But sometimes a good smelling, good tasting thing doesn't have any effect or like a poor effect, which is sort of like it's like, well, I could always just smoke more. It tastes good, it smells good, and that's like I've heard a lot of people justify it that way. But it's like, well,
I
what if
could
I don't want to
also
have
eat
to?
food. I could also eat food for taste. That's what my taste buds were made for.
Right?
No,
Right?
I knew this kid. He didn't care if it got you stoned. If he didn't want to smoke it, if it didn't taste good, he didn't want nothing to do with it.
That's why that's wild to me. That's
Yeah, I'm like, dude, what? Like, yeah, that's because you can get it all. Why not go for it all, right? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they also make flavored
yeah,
like joint wraps, you know. So like if
that's
you want it
true.
to
Yeah.
taste like a blueberry or a banana or an apple or something like that. Like when I was first starting smoking, like when we had really shitty weed, occasionally you'd get one of those flavored joint wraps, and it wasn't the worst thing in the whole entire world. I'm sure it's probably not the best for you, but I think that they try to tend to put like generally recognized as safe flavorings and things in there for smokers generally. So
Generally, what's generally mean? No, I
yeah,
mean I'm the guy that's going for the hemp wrap because that's the closest thing to cannabis, and I'm smoking. That's why I'm smoking. But
so I like a
I'm
hemp
not really
paper.
going. Yeah, I'm not really going the way of artificial anything if I can help it.
Yeah, I think like a simple like if you got like a hemp paper with like limonene or something to make it like a little citrusy, that's not gonna put me off too badly. But like some of the stuff
Come on,
that I
do you
was
know?
talking about,
But do you know? Like it's ingrained in my mind like a rut. Like if you're riding a bike and you get a rut in the dirt road, right? And the rut in my brain is every time someone even brings up a flavored wrapping of any kind, instantly in my head, what flashes is why don't you just grow better weed? What the fuck are you talking about? You flavoring the papers? Because to me, it's like I understand the desire for it, but to me, you're creating a crutch and a reason for shitty weed.
right? But I was just kind of thinking in lines of like the effect, like a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down kind of
I see
thing.
what you're saying to make it improve on something that's lacking flavor is what you're saying.
Yeah, so like or like a harsh flavor, like you were talking like dabbing earlier with the sour diesel, like it's leaving
Yeah.
like a pinch in your throat, or it's just like not like the flavor of sour diesel that you were looking for, or it could just be like an off-putting flavor. Like some people don't like the really garlicky, funky stuff that comes out of GMO or Donny burgers, so they'll get like a Skittles, and they'll have like a 70% Skittles, 30% Donny burger mix in their dab. So like the gassy funkiness gets kind of toned down and washed out by some of that really citrusy, candy, terpy flavor that like they're there for that flavor and they also want to get high. So the Donny burger punches it up a little bit, but like they can't handle the pure Donny. So it's like cutting cutting it a little bit, so to speak. And I don't generally recommend that, but if whatever makes people happy, I do like a salad in a more full spectrum, so I think that has
Yeah.
its benefits. But at the same time, I'm
But
with you. Like grow the best possible and like don't have to soup it
but
up.
even a salad a lot of times will generate reduced flavor, you know, but you get a better effect.
Which like that it always comes down to it's like what are we ultimately using it for? If we're using it for the flavor, I guess like you can be a purist and flavor hound or whatever. But for me, I kind of always came from it even before I knew it from a medical perspective for pain relief, for sleep, for mental health issues or whatever. It has always been a medical backing. And if I do enjoy the flavor, that's a bonus. If I do enjoy the effects, even like the side effects, that's a bonus. Or like if the side effect is something that I'm trying to use intentionally, like increased energy or increased focus, like that's a win, right? You can start to learn which ones work for each individual. Because I know people that are like, that put me in the couch. Like, I thought you said that was a hybrid. Like, well, for me, it's like I put that stipulation out there. It's like my endocannabinoid system is not the same as yours, so it's worth trying. And maybe you can harvest it earlier, or maybe find a more light pheno. But it always comes down to each individual. But that said, we're coming up to our final few minutes. Oh man, did we forget a giveaway? I think we might have one more. Did Spartan Grown get his giveaway in?
Yeah, let's do a giveaway for Spartan Grown stuff.
All right, let's do a Spartan Grown giveaway, and then we'll wrap it up. I think we'll do 1 to 130. Uh,
I gotta
I
put a
think
number let me put a number in chat. 1 to 130. All
I'm
right, I
gonna
got
type
it.
start.
Oh man, are they gonna be able to guess this number in 2 minutes? Might have to go long, guys.
It's closest. It's the closest. So everybody gets one
Just
guess,
one guess.
and
Yeah.
after a minute or 2 minutes, we'll cut it off because we're about to wrap the show up. And we've got a number right here, Spartan Grown. I wrote start, so you get one guess. If you see somebody else guess yours, you can re-guess, but only if you see somebody else. If we see you double up, we're gonna drop you. So be very careful. Don't double enter unless you get. I got my live
This
chat rolling. I'm seeing lots
really
of.
close guesses already.
We definitely got some good ones rolling in.
This will be for your choice of Project V, Spartan Puke, or Orange Vortex.
I see, and he said if poop got me high from smelling it, I don't care. I'm out.
Just
Love
from
that. I
smelling
see.
it, I would smell poop if it made me feel like cannabis.
Oh, that'd be a rough one. There's definitely shit
I
strains out
wouldn't
there.
eat it or smoke it, but
Dude,
just
I
smell it.
smell poop probably once a day, I think.
Yeah, I say I fucking my first job was on a farm. I fucking Covered in
It,
poop,
it depends
unfortunately.
whose or what's poop, right?
When they fertilize the fields here where I'm at, they use shit every once in a while, and man, it reeks out the whole fucking area.
Oh yeah, it does.
For a couple days usually.
Yeah, for a couple days.
All right, y'all. We got 10 more seconds. Get your guesses in. I don't think anybody nailed this one. Oh man, that last one was really close. That's probably a hint. Oh, and there it is.
Oh, we got
Martial
him.
artist hits it on the
Yep,
final
martial
hour.
All right,
arts.
martial
Boom.
artist.
Martial
Nice.
artist 2012 nailed it. Dead ringer 77. Congratulations to
Yeah, hit me
you.
up, Marshall. Hit me up
Speaking
on
of, where can he hit you up, Spartan? Because we're doing our final thoughts and shout outs. So let the people know where they can find you and any final thoughts before we wrap it.
Yeah, he can shout out martial artist. I believe he's local. So you can hit me up on Instagram. I believe we follow each other. Also, you can just shoot me an email, spartangrown@gmail.com or russ at gmlarmy. I think that's about all the places you can get a hold of me. One of those will definitely get to me and pretty quick. Other than that, guys, thanks for the episode. It was an awesome episode. Happy 300. That's fucking badass. It feels like, you know, it's funny to link because when I think back, it sounds like a long time ago, but to me, it feels like it hasn't been that long ago. So I don't know how to feel about it.
Time
But
flies when you're having fun.
exactly, exactly. But it's all because of chat, you know. You guys are here to support us the whole time and keep us going, keep us talking, and give us things to talk about. So thanks for that. Much love, everybody. 300 more and keep on growing.
We're gonna keep it going. I love this, man, and it's a great time, and I'm glad we could give back to the community a little bit this week. Like I said, that's not the main focus, but it's always nice when we can. Next up, we got Noah the Grower.
Yeah, sorry I was a little bit late, but I'm watching the Bills Chiefs game here, and I'm actually barbecuing some steaks and stuff. Family's over, but I jumped on. Glad I was able to hang out with you guys. I'm Noah the Girl on Instagram. You can find me there, and see everybody next week.
Big shout out to Noah. He's always posting fire. Follow him on Instagram for sure, and he's got some sound advice in many many ways in life. So shout out to Noah and going all the way back to that hidden episode. Glad you were able to make that one and many others. So always good to have you, and always good to have everybody on the panel, including our last and certainly not least panelists, the American one.
Jack, as always, thanks for hosting this very special 300th episode. Shout out to all the people in chat that hang out with us live. I love hanging out with them. Most nights I get to get in there and hang out good. And shout out to everybody who listens to us after the show. That's always great too. I'm the American One on the YouTube and the American One underscore with underscore Keens on the IG. And yeah, thanks for watching the show and listening. And it's great to be here. And hopefully we get another 1,300 episodes in, or maybe even more. Because I maybe I'll have to take over, because I'm living to 168.
Dude,
But
I was shooting for 100. You're doing 168. Okay, I might have
yeah,
to up my game.
168. All right, but all that being said, thanks to everyone, and yeah, I love all the people that hang out with us here. And oh, I just want to do a shout out to Smart and Crispy. They've been under the weather, and I missed them drastically this morning. I really like hanging out there on Sunday mornings because it's a time where I can actually pay attention good. But yeah, I hope they're feeling better, and yeah, I guess that's about it. Peace out, everybody.
Cheers, Tal, and thank you so much for joining us. And cheers to everybody. Happy 300 at Jack Greenstock. You know where to find me. Catch y'all on the next one. Cheers. I'm gonna take a rip with y'all.
Keep growing.